Okay, we are live. Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. That isn't George or Tate. This is James. Have we done movie reviews before? Yes, you've been on. The last review you did was Last Jedi.
Yeah, we did Last Jedi.
Which was less than 6 months ago. We're back with another Star Wars review, and this is our much belated spoiler-filled discussion on this movie. This movie came out about 2 weeks ago, and we did a spoiler-free discussion, and we've been waiting for the guys. We've been waiting for our schedules to line up and everything like that. And unfortunately, it wasn't happening. So they've agreed for me to just do the spoiler review, and we'll be on for a review for Jurassic World later tonight. But this was my second time watching the movie. I needed to give it a fresh rewatch because, as I said 2 weeks ago, and the movie being what it is very forgettable. I'm just going to put that out there at the beginning. This was your first time watching the movie, though. So we fresh out the cinema as of like 2 hours ago, an hour ago. And yeah, we're going to go through this entire movie. First, we're going to start with your opinions, though, overall. Lead up to it, were you excited for this movie? Like, trailers, anything like that? Did you watch any of the trailers?
I think I might have caught one of the trailers.
Yeah.
I'm not big on movies and trailers. The trailers and stuff. You know me, I don't really buy into a lot of that. I try not to buy into the hype market these days.
You tend to go in fresh most movies, don't you? Yeah. It's probably the best way to do it.
I don't know. Some stuff is worth it, but so I caught one of the trailers.
Yeah,
and in fairness, I was sort of excited for Solo when it was announced because, like every single Star Wars fan ever, a Han Solo movie is like, yes, please. But I mean, you mentioned we're 6 months after Last Jedi.
Yeah,
it was definitely so it was too close, and you know, we knew it as well. It was it was just so badly advertised, so it was quite difficult to build up a lot of hype for it. Yeah, reasonably excited going in. Obviously, I've only just seen it. We're 2 weeks in. It's difficult not to go into it knowing that people aren't huge on it.
Yeah,
there hasn't been a lot of really favourable reviews. There haven't been. I don't know if there's not been that many really nasty reviews.
No. I think
not yet.
The feeling of indifference is kind of what most people are feeling with this movie. I know some people that really dislike it, but most people just seem really ambivalent towards it. And that's honestly kind of where I am with this movie. Like, I watched it the first time. I think when I came onto the review, it was actually a very difficult review to do, to even fresh out the cinema, like I guess you're feeling this as well, to even think of anything to talk about. I didn't seem to really have much of an opinion on it. With the Star Wars spin-off films, they're very, very different to the episodic ones in that the episodic ones feel more special. It feels like more at stake because obviously it's a continuation of the main saga, whereas these are other trajectories. These are just other side stories, which you still have to have seen the original films at least to appreciate and to pick up everything, but they are kind of like a separate identity somewhat. But with this one, even when it was announced originally, this was a film that no one really wanted. There wasn't really an outcry for a Han Solo spin-off movie. With the likes of Rogue One, there is actually a story there, but for this one, I mean, Harrison Ford has played that character since the original Star Wars movie, 1977. Obviously, bringing back The Force Awakens, he has been that character. So I get that people were hesitant in bringing a new actor into those shoes of the character. And to be fair, it must have been hard for him as well.
Yeah.
Because we know that Star Wars fans can be pretty, like with the whole thing with, I forgot the name of the actress, the one who plays Rose from Last Jedi. She's, you know, quit Twitter now or whatever it was, or Instagram. That's the one, yeah. So...
yeah, I mean, I don't envy Alden.
Yeah,
but it's not a good role to have to step into.
No,
at least for Rogue One, you know, Director Krennic's not a character that's ever been in it. None of the other characters never will be again, be in that series. But they, you know, they weren't extant characters, and it's the same. It's the same to an extent as well with the sequel characters. They're new. You know, you're not. Even, you know, you can say that with Rey. You can go like, oh, it must be difficult stepping into the role of the new hero character, but it's not like she's playing
a pre-existing character in the
stepping into the role of Han,
a beloved character as well.
Stepping into the role of Han or the role of Lando must have been just like,
yeah.
So I don't envy him. I have to say, I suspect I'm not the intended audience for this in any way. I am a Star Wars fan. I've been a Star Wars fan since as long as I can remember. You know, I watched the films when I was about 4 or whatever. But I'm a fan of the old expanded universe. I grew up with that. That was everything I watched. And a theme that has run through all of Disney Star Wars for me is trying to view it as something new and separate and failing, frankly. I really struggle to. If there's something that Solo's in one of those really awkward positions where partly it's kind of like, yeah, it's a new thing and it's part of the new Disney universe, and you're like, oh, cool, I've got to try and give it the benefit of the doubt. And part of it is it has that many links to old stuff and old canon that you're kind of like, I don't know where this sits.
It's like they're cherry picking certain things. It's like with Rebels where they take the character of Thrawn, you know, they put him way back before in the timeline compared to where the actual original Timothy Zahn books happen.
The actual episode 7, 8, and 9, I think we can safely say, the actual episode 7, 8, and 9 of Timothy Zahn.
For the longest time, they were what people considered to be that trilogy, and you know what? They're probably better than what we've actually got. But
then there's been a lot of stuff with that. With Han, you know, there's any amount of stuff that's set in and around the films to try and deal with his character. And it just like, it's a very sort of, it's a difficult sort of proposition to be in, I guess, from the filmmaking perspective, from the audience perspective as well. For me, it's difficult to separate from that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm just looking at how much this movie's made at the minute, and it's like no secret this movie is absolutely bombed at the box office. I mean, it was done on a budget of about 250 mil. That probably doesn't take into consideration, you know, marketing and advertisement, everything like that, which I will say, like, I disagree with it. I think it was extensive. I was seeing a lot of TV spots for this things, side of buses, things like that. Like, and it's a Star Wars movie, like people.
They got old side of bus.
Just like, oh, you can tell I'm UK, can't you? But I mean, the box office at the moment is 280.4 mil. Like, this might even struggle to get to 300 mil. I don't think it will at this point. There were more people in the cinema today when we went to see it. Now, granted, this is a weekend. When I went to see it, it was opening day, which I think was a Wednesday or a Thursday afternoon for us. But even still, like a Star Wars movie opening day, that would get a lot of people in. And this one just isn't. I don't know if it's a fact of oversaturation, the fact that it's only been about 5 months since The Last Jedi's come out, the fact that The Last Jedi, for some people, was a very, you know, was a film that did gauge a lukewarm reception. It was very much of a divisive film, or the fact that people have gone to see it and went, you know what, it wasn't that great, and they haven't gone to see it a second and third time. Because even with me, with the sequel films, I mean, I make no bones about it, I didn't like Force Awakens, I didn't like The Last Jedi, but I still saw each of those movies about 2 or 3 times because you, as I said, with the episode numbers, it feels like you try and convince yourself to like them a little bit more because they are part of that main saga. With this one, this was a real struggle for me just to see this a second time. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was waiting for you to see it. I asked if you'd seen it, and you was like, no, you were going to go today. And you were like, do you want to come with? And I was like, I was genuinely like mulling it over for about 5 or 10 minutes. Like, I can't, it's tradition for us to go and see them at this point, but also I need to go to my local cinema. I need to sit down. I need to get a ticket for Han Solo and then waste 2 hours, 15 minutes of my life watching this again. We actually thought we might be the only 2 people in there. There was like this vain slither of hope that maybe we'd be the only 2 in. If that had been the case, that would have been fucking fantastic because we would have had an absolute right in there. And we still did. We were still ripping into it, but there were some people in front of us a couple of rows ahead, and we couldn't really. I have done that with movies.
We couldn't be that guy.
No, well, we could, but in the situation, we couldn't. I mean, I was even talking about, you know, smuggling booze in with me. Like, that would have been my smuggling mission. Can I get it past the cinema workers? I'm just like...
You do know you could buy booze there.
Can you?
Yeah, they've got a bar.
Why don't you fucking tell me? You tell me that now.
Anyway, Solo.
Yes, if you want to carry on talking, I'm just going to check if the audio is okay for this. I guess if anyone's watching this right now... is the audio fine? Brinsley's in the comments again. Good to see you, Brinsley.
Okay. Watch out. Remember, this is a spoiler review. We are going to spoil it.
Yes, that's in the title. Everyone should be aware of it. I was going to say that everyone should have seen it by now, but clearly people haven't been watching it right now.
See, George has let us know, actually, Solo has finally made it into the big books of a whole 300
mil
Star Wars film. Wow.
Yeah, and you know, as I said, like, that's not taken into consideration all the advertisement, which usually they say the general rule of thumb is that you have to double what the budget was. Now, 250 mil is a big budget for a movie, but the fact as well, I don't want to go into it because we've talked about it loads on the channel, but the really troubled production of this movie in that Phil Lord and Chris Miller were the two directors that were originally doing it. I think they almost had wrapped filming completely. I think they were about a week or two away from completion. Kathleen Kennedy announces that they're being fired from the project, creative differences, things weren't gelling, and it wasn't taking shape with what they wanted. So they kick them off. Within a couple of days, they bring in Ron Howard, who is a solid director. He's a very inconsistent director. Like, he can make Apollo 13, which is a fantastic film, and then he can make In the Heart of the Sea, which was that really terrible whale movie with Chris Hemsworth. Or he actually directed The Grinch, the Jim Carrey Grinch movie, which I actually do like that movie. But he's a very safe choice, I think, as a director. He gets the job done. He's very professional, but he is that sort of... I can see him being a yes man if Disney want it in a certain way.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's also taken into consideration the budget, because from what I can understand, they pretty much just reshot the entire movie from the ground up. So you're essentially filming the same movie twice. I don't know. But right, that's our very long-winded intro. In fact, some people might even consider that being a review. But we're going to go into it now. As I said, this is going to be spoiler-filled. So if you haven't seen Solo, obviously click off, go and watch our spoiler-free review. We are going to comb through this entire movie from the beginning, starting with the opening title crawl. Well, not title crawl, but title card, I guess, is probably the best way to go about it. That really caught me off guard. In the, obviously now we don't get the 20th Century Fox, but you get Lucasfilm fade in, and then a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And I remember when Rogue One came out, it was like whiplash. It like there was like an orchestra sting, threw you into it. This one continues a title card, and feeds us information.
You've got about 90 seconds,
of
title cards of just background, the stuff that would be in an opening crawl. It's not a very dynamic way of doing it, but does it matter much? I don't know. Rogue One, like we said, it was very sort of... I'll make no bones about like how much I loved Rogue One. I know, again, like all of them, they're very divisive. And I wouldn't have been sad to see it take cues from how Rogue One was made. I was very sort of like, intro. This one obviously slowed it down. Fine, whatever. You know, the first thing though I noticed, because it opens up with Han hijacking a car in Corellia. Well, a car. Speeder, flying car, space car.
He's a flyer after all.
He is a flyer. He's a small poster you put on the wall. So it starts with Corellia. The first thing I noticed about it is an astonishingly ugly film.
No, I've picked up on that. Like the cinematography, the color palette. The
color palette really, like I know you know a lot more about sort of film technique than me, and that's okay. But even as Mr. Ignorant. No, the colour palette in this was dreadful. There was a planet right at the end, the last one they're on, and it's the first time anything is clear. Corellia is all... It might as well be in grayscale. It's like all grey, and it goes into like a bar, and it's all blue. Or he goes into somewhere, and it's all yellow. And it's a really obnoxious yellow. And it's really difficult to make out. Like, if this was... I don't know if it's lighting or just like the colour palette was framed better, you could probably pick up a lot more of the background things, because half the enjoyment in Star Wars movies is like looking at the background, seeing what you can pick out. And you know, like the opening on Corellia, like I get that it's meant to be as like a city, like the criminal underbelly, like the underworld sort of thing, and it's going to be very dark, it's going to be very dingy and grimy. But there are films that have come out that have got that across effectively on camera and still live it. Blade Runner, for example, shows a very, very rundown. I know that's like an extreme example, like one of the most prolific sci-fi movies ever made. But the point is, you still get a very congested feel, lived in, dirty, grimy city, but it's stunning to look at, and you can make all the detail out. You even get that, you know, in the franchise. What's the city near the start of Rogue One that's in like a little asteroid belt? It's not the most beautiful looking one. It's not Blade Runner, but like it gets that really grimy. You know, it's got very compressed streets, and it's got very dark lighting with sort of spotlights across it that convey that kind of like seedy underbelly thing. And it doesn't do it with like lazy swatches, and you kind of get it at you see it in Coruscant in episode 2, you know, which has got that kind of neon vibe to it as well. Well, that was very inspired by Blade Runner as well. You're not saying episode 2's derivative. Mostly of Ridley Scott, actually. Like in Red Letter Media, they kind of point this out, how, you know, Ridley Scott had just made Gladiator like 2 years before, and George Lucas was like, well, I'm going to have a Colosseum, but it's going to be bigger and better and more stuff going on. Chris, let's remember we're talking about Solo, not the bad Star Wars films.
Oh, sorry, forgive me.
Otherwise, we won't talk about Solo.
But if I'm going to compare this sort of from a cinematography perspective in terms of the color palette, it reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen it, Superman Returns, the Bryan Singer.
Oh yeah,
Brandon Routh, how it was just a very brown and just miserable looking movie.
Very desaturated.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been commenting about that actually. So as I say, we start off on Corellia. And they introduce us to the character of Kira and Han Solo and how they've got this budding romance. It reminded me of a kind of Bonnie and Clyde type situation they've got going on, like two people against the world. They want to break away. They're essentially having to go on all these, like, you know, do a life of crime, steal things, whatever, for this character called Lady Proxima, who is this, like, giant 12-foot... I'm glad that it actually was an animatronic. It was a puppet. I like that about it. It reminded me of something from Labyrinth or Dark Crystal or something like that. It was actually a very good puppet. And they're essentially having to work for her. She's like the queen of this organization. I do think the beginning was a little rushed. I don't know if anything was cut out from that. I don't know if that was some stuff carried over from the Phil Lord, Chris Miller stuff. But having said that, like, I know I talked about Ron Howard just a minute ago, but the film doesn't feel disjointed. It doesn't feel like two movies mashed together. It does feel like a cohesive whole. But I will say that the beginning did feel a little bit, and even Rogue One suffered with that, I thought, where it struggled to find its footing at the beginning. And I don't know if that text crawl at the start had to sort of make up for lost footage or something like that to get you on board with what was going on.
I wouldn't be surprised. The problem with it is that the opening scenes of the movie have to cover like a ton of ground because the main plot, because this is about the Kessel Run.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's the only thing of any named note in anything Han Solo from the original film. So, but they have to lead up to it. So the opening scenes of it, you know, they go through kind of breakneck pace of Han's a kid on Corellia. He's working for this crime lord, but you don't see anything about the crime lord. It's just they're there, you know. And then he breaks away from it, and then he has to go join the Empire because everyone knows he's an Imperial pilot. But then he gets kicked out of the Empire because he's not very good at being a soldier. And then, you know, that whole lot is condensed quite.
Well, there's a 3-year time jump, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's like a shot where he gets... We're jumping ahead and we'll come back, but there's a bit where he gets through customs and he's like going off on his own. Then it cuts to black 3 years later and boom, he's on the front lines of a mission of the Empire.
And not a pilot, which is what he's signed up to be.
Yeah.
So there's a whole thing of like, well, why aren't you a pilot? Why are you a foot soldier? That's just ignored. I mean, it's sort of hand-waved away as, oh, he's not very good at following orders.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's a lot of that maybe that was cut.
Yeah.
Because we don't see anything about his relationship with this crime lord, Lady Proxima. We just see that he's not good at following orders, so he doesn't do very well with them. And yeah, you're right. It is a really cool looking puppet, animatronic. Sorry. Yeah, a lot of stuff's kind of just cut though. I feel like that maybe was a victim of the dark times.
Yeah. And so
I just did a reference there. Did you see what I did?
I did. I got it. Yeah.
That's nothing like Solo. There's no references in Solo whatsoever.
We were just like checklisting them off, weren't we?
Can we talk about the worst one?
Yeah,
because it's at the start.
Yeah, it is. And I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this in the spoiler-free review that I did a couple of weeks ago. But I made mention of a moment about 10 minutes into the movie, which almost made me walk out of this movie. So Kira and Han Solo, there's a chase sequence at the start. They get away and they're trying to get through customs. Essentially, is it like customs or like?
Yeah, it's customs because they're trying to get onto a ship that takes them off planet.
Yeah.
But they get separated partway through. So Kira gets taken off, but Han gets let through.
Yeah.
Because drama.
Yeah.
Because they have to, and that's fine. And then Han, rather than board the ship, sees a brilliant, frankly, little advert for Imperial recruitment.
Yeah,
with this like tinny version of the Imperial March.
It's like a MIDI version of the Imperial March. I didn't
join the Empire.
I didn't actually notice that. The first time I watched it, I didn't even clock onto that fact.
Yeah.
I think I was just sort of sitting there like, and everything else was just like blanked out to me. Until the moment we're about to talk about in a couple of seconds after that point. But yeah, no, watching it again, it's great because now the Imperial March is technically a piece of music that exists within universe.
I love it. Do you reckon Vader appears with like a guy playing it?
So that's really weird now. If you're watching all these movies in sequence from like Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, you've got to follow Revenge of the Sith up immediately with this. So when you've had the, the little interludes of Imperial March before, now you realize that it turns out that it's just on some kind of propaganda video. It's like that poster, like Vader, like the Empire wants you kind of thing. No, I love that. I could imagine that being a Phil Lord, Chris Miller thing.
Yeah.
That very referencey, tongue-in-cheek kind of thing.
Well, it's not like... There's a lot of instances of what I think is safe to call Disney humor. The same sort of jokes that appear in the new Star Wars films and in Marvel films. And they're kind of very safe, family-friendly humor.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. It doesn't do it for me, but it's, if I started complaining about everything, every instance of that, I would just be miserable all the time. But that...
Implying that we're not already.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Well, I am, apparently.
But, you hate all films.
Of course I hate all films. Like, why do I have this channel? Like, why do I talk about movies? I clearly have no enjoyment for anything. This
is why we're friends.
Yeah.
We don't like films.
I think you've just rubbed off on me over the years. Like, I don't remember being this jaded in my youth.
But the little Imperial March thing was like a genuinely funny gag.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it was. I'm not going to complain. I liked that.
Which is immediately dissipated within the next moment.
In the trailers, we did see Han signing up to the Imperial Navy and becoming a pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course he is. There's never an implication that his name isn't Han Solo. He's Han Solo.
Yeah.
That's his name. We're just waiting for it to be...
On the birth certificate, boom, Han Solo.
All we're doing, all this film is supposed to be me waiting for him to go, I'm Han Solo, Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
That's the line. That's it.
Yeah.
No, he's just Han. He goes up to the Imperial guy and he goes, I'm just Han. I have no family name.
And you could tell what they were doing. They were they were building up to this shit. And you had exactly the same reaction as me. I told you there was a moment, and I told you when the moment was coming up.
I did not think it would be that.
But they were queuing it up, and you were like, they're not. They're not. Oh, they fucking are. And they do it. So he goes what's your name? He's typing it on the computer, giving him a new member ID or something like that. He's like, Han. And he goes, what's your surname? And he goes, oh, I don't have one. He's like, well, who are your people? Who are you with? I'm with no one. I'm alone.
And he takes this Imperial... He takes a little moment.
There's a pregnant pause.
He takes a little moment.
He's like,
Solo.
I was like, oh, I'm ready to torch the fucking building. I am done. I'm ready to just leave. Oh, hang on, what we've got?
They want to see Jurassic World 2 again.
Yes, Brinsley will have our review later on for Jurassic World 2. Lot to say on this one, but we had to get this out first.
Yeah. So that...
Oh, it was so bad.
Painful.
And I hate references like that. I've mentioned this loads on the channel, but there's always an example, and I've told it back to you, I've told it to all my friends. Yeah. The moment from the last Hobbit movie where they don't even name drop Aragorn, but they build up to it so much that it's just a pointless reference. The bit with Thranduil when he's saying to Legolas, go north, there is a range from the north, you must meet him. His father Arathorn was a great man, his true name you must discover for yourself. And there's a little interlude of the Fellowship theme that plays. Yeah. I can't stand stuff like that. No. And I get that this is meant to be an origin story, quote unquote, for the Han Solo character, but we didn't need an origin for his actual name. And they do that as well for Chewbacca later on in the movie, which is another moment we'll talk about.
The example I always say for that is in the latest run of the X-Men films, when Charles Xavier loses his hair.
Yeah.
I was like, can he not just be bald?
Oh, in X-Men Apocalypse, yeah.
I'm like, can he not just be bald?
Yeah.
Is that not... Does there have to be an origin story
for his baldness? Yeah.
And in this one, can his name not just be Han Solo? It's a cool name.
Yeah.
Can he not just be called Han Solo?
We're probably 25 minutes into this movie. Yeah, we haven't even touched the surface of this movie, but this moment really did hurt us a little bit.
The problem with it is it's just because it's such a worthless reference and an explanation
that's unnecessary.
Yeah. And the problem with all of these kind of films, not that they're all terrible, but the problem with them is just that they're built to explain stuff from other films and built to link to them, but they kind of just don't need to.
Yeah.
It's why, because I recently read the Thrawn novel by Timothy Zahn. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he wrote a new. He might have read it.
He must have read it back at some point.
He wrote a new one, but it doesn't spend all its time trying to explain stuff that happens in Rebels. It's just these are some characters from Rebels. Fine.
Yeah.
Here's some stuff that happens, and that's kind of what Rogue One does. It's built to explain something important.
Yeah.
But it has a story to tell, and that's kind of what this doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's built to explain things, and it's built that don't need explaining. What's your name? It's Han. On my own? Han.
Han Solitary.
Han Solitary. I'm Han Solitary, but Solo for short.
Oh, that name's too long. You're going to need some kind of nickname, kid.
Anyway, 3 years later.
Yeah, and we're immediately thrown into World War I in the trenches, apparently.
It's a derivative scene straight out of Firefly. Honestly.
See, I haven't seen Firefly.
You've seen a brown coat.
Yeah. I will be honest, like when I heard originally that, well, I don't know where I heard about this. I think there were rumors that it was going to be in the movie that Han was going to be part of the Empire. I was immediately against it because I was always under the impression in the original movie that he would sort of like kept himself away from causes, like he was just sort of his own man in the galaxy, and he didn't really pay much attention to the Empire. He was probably aware of it and everything like that, but he didn't really pay much attention to it. And then people started saying that this is actually based on the old EU, where he was actually drafted into the Empire.
Yeah, he's piloting the Imperial Navy.
Yeah.
Same, but it's like a lot of characters kind of have links to it anyway. It's like Luke wanting to go into the Imperial Navy in the first films because it's where you go if you want to be a pilot.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're necessarily part of the Empire. Well, I mean, it does, but like plenty of people secede from it. No wonder they had a rebellion. Nobody bloody likes them. And
I will say, though, that the first part of this movie, in terms of this was giving me new stuff. It might not have been portrayed or put across of how I wanted it, but it was new stuff, seeing that kind of environment. And I do actually like how they've started doing this as well. They did this with the Battlefront 2 game, the single-player campaign on it. They do introduce a lot more humanity to the Empire side of things and the stormtroopers. There's bits in Rogue One where you see a stormtrooper and he's in like the back of a wagon and he's just sort of sitting there, looks really mundane, like it's just part of the day job. You see stormtroopers walking around Starkiller Base and there's a bit more personality to them this time. And I like that. And when you see stormtroopers that are like screaming like my leg, and they've just been like in a mortar explosion and stuff like that, I do like seeing that side to it, and they do actually feel like they're soldiers and there's consequences to their mission.
Yeah, for all its faults, and we'll get to them, the world building is probably better than it's ever been.
Yeah,
I think if there's one thing that Lucas did well, it was he built quite entertaining worlds. You know, he had wonderful sort of grim, gritty space fantasy stuff with the originals. The prequels built this lovely, colourful, vibrant, occasionally not very good movies, but good sort of worlds that you see from it. And even though you spend a lot of time looking at the galactic politics, you kind of get a sense of how this republic is being built. And what I like about the new ones is they're showing a little bit more of the ground up stuff.
Yeah.
So like when we saw Jakku, in the sort of little society that exists there, and we see a little bit of it in Rogue One and some of the planets. We see it in this as well. Like the way Corellia is built, I quite like it. You don't get the sense that it's a shipbuilding facility, apart from that one really nice shot of a half-built Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
In fact, both shots that Star Destroyers are in this film are excellent.
Yeah.
There's maybe the only two.
Yeah, they know how to frame their shots. Like I think they've just spammed Star Destroyers since Disney acquired the rights, haven't they? I think they're in everything, really. But
yeah, that's the point. Like Corellia, it's really nicely built. And then we get this war scene that I don't know. I don't know if they tell you what it is, where it is.
I think they don't tell us where it is. They just say they're on a mission. They're basically trying to capture this, or like bring it in order to line of the Empire.
I know what happened. A flag had been captured. A command post had been taken by the Empire. We must fight for it.
Well, that's exactly what the main leader sounds like. I love how it was like your typical sort of like World War I generals, like what, stiff upper lip, like, you know, that kind of thing. I loved how they portrayed his character. I really liked that part. And I guess through this mission that Han Solo finds himself in, this is where we run into the character of Beckett, played by Woody Harrelson, and the other sort of supporting crew at that first part of the movie.
Don't worry about the names. You're not going to need them.
Well, this is what I'm going to move on to next. So this whole introduction to these characters, and you know what? Like, the characters aren't in it for all that long. Can you tell me anything about them as a character?
Yeah. Okay, I'll give it a go.
Okay.
They're characters. They exist. Okay. Woody Harrelson, we can pass on because obviously he's in the movie.
Yeah, so he's in it a lot more.
So his crew seems to consist of two.
There's Thandie Newton, who plays a character called Val, and there's the CGI Rocket Raccoon knockoff voiced by
and that's it.
Jon Favreau. Yeah,
that's it. No, he does say they're short-handed. I think that's fair. That doesn't seem a lot for a crime scene. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So he's got. You called him Rocket Raccoon. I can't. Rio.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Rio? I can't remember his name. CGI monkey thing.
He's a new species. He's got 4 arms. I like that, actually. There's a point to saying you've got a really complex spaceship, 4-arm creature, completely prehensile legs and stuff like that. That's quite a good idea.
Yeah, I wasn't keen on his character. I just didn't like I didn't like the design of it. It felt like, I know like Star Wars is a big universe. They bring in new aliens every single time, but it didn't feel. It felt too cartoony for this universe. This is a universe that has Gungans, but it felt more in line with that.
I wonder though if it felt that because it was so clearly CG in a universe or in a film that's got quite a lot of practical effects.
Well, that's what keeps throwing me about these movies. Like when Force Awakens came out, they kept saying there's going to be a bigger push for practical things like that. And whilst they do use a lot more puppets, there's some characters they just still do in CGI. Maz Kanata, there was no reason for Maz Kanata to be in CGI.
Let's not talk about Maz Kanata.
Or
we've already done that in Last Jedi.
Or like some things in Last Jedi and like in Canto Bight. There's and in this as well. Like there are some things that just don't need to be CGI.
Like the space horse dog things.
Yeah.
The Last Guardians.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I didn't mind his character. Yes, he was clearly a comic relief character. But fine.
Mm-hmm.
He was light-hearted enough for what was, in the middle of some quite intense scenes. He's not in it for long. I don't mind that.
Mm.
I didn't find him obnoxious. He was just cracking wise.
Mm.
That's fine. Yes, every single character has the same voice. They all crack wise, but he was passable. And Brinsley saying they wasted Thandie Newton.
I'll agree with that.
I would agree with that.
She's a really good actress. He's mentioned that she's really good in Westworld. I actually haven't seen Westworld yet. I've seen the trailers. I've heard it's fantastic. Part of it, I do want to watch the original film that I think came out in the 70s. Like I want to watch that first before seeing the new one. But like Red Letter Media's review of Phantom Menace is probably like the most prolific review of that film on the internet. Like it's great. If anyone hasn't seen Red Letter Media's review on Star Wars films, go and watch them.
You'll beat it one day.
Yeah. But there's a moment in that where he does this experiment where he goes up to some of his friends and he says, describe this character from Phantom Menace without giving me anything related to their appearance or occupation.
Okay.
And obviously, the more you can talk about that character, the more fleshed out they are, well written. And then they say like C-3PO, and they say like he's prissy, he's the comic relief, he's bumbling, he's like that. Then they say Queen Amidala, and they're like, she's
prissy, she's bumbling. She's clearly not very good at running a planet.
She's like monotone. They say she's just kind of normal. If I
just kind of normal,
you're pretty much. But like I could say that about these characters, like Thandie Newton's character in this. What do we get from her?
I think that's true, but the point about them is that they're not really there for a purpose beyond being killed off. So Woody Harrelson has a reason to tell Han, no, you can't trust anyone because this is what happens. This is why I don't trust people. Everyone dies or stuff like that. They're not really there for a purpose beyond being killed. So I see the point in that. It is a waste.
Well, you could say the same for Rogue. Like I know Rogue One, the characters lasted pretty much all the way through the movie. But...
Sure, they die, but their purpose is that for the whole film.
Yeah,
it's not that they're there for a scene to set something else up.
Mm-hmm.
If they hadn't died, Han couldn't prove himself as a pilot and couldn't prove himself as like a capable crew. They might have been able to wrangle their way out of the talk with the bad guy.
Oh, Paul Bettany.
That's it. I was trying to think of his character name, but I said so. Dryden Voss.
Yeah, I was going to say Quinlan Voss, but that's a completely different character from the EU.
Dyson Vacuums. Anyway. So they wouldn't be able to, maybe they'd be able to wheel the way out of it. And no, it's fine. Some characters are built just for that purpose. That's okay. So then, he doesn't get on with them because they're in this war scene. He works out that they're smugglers because they keep it under wraps. They stand in front of a massive Imperial transport and go, "We're going to steal that." No one will guess we're thieves. Because we're gonna steal this. Don't think anyone knows. Don't think anyone noticed. It's okay. So he uses his, frankly, Sherlock Holmes-esque powers of deduction to work out that they're thieves.
Mm-hmm.
I like his little Sherlock moment. He goes, but you're wearing the shirt of a man who's dead. I was like, well done. Good job.
Like, could be bulletproof. Well, I know there's like bullet holes, but like it could be armored.
But he did just stand behind them going, let's steal that. So
I do love that moment though on the front lines where he looks up at him and there's like this sort of like victory shot of him and he's just doing completely pointless gunslinger like all that stuff. He's like, oh god, what's the characters from Metal Gear Solid?
Revolver Ocelot.
Ocelot, that's it. It reminded me of that.
Gun man. Revolver Ocelot.
Put that in the credits. Gun dude.
Yeah, he does have a sense of the cool about him.
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson, and he's brought that to the character.
Did he teach him how to do that?
No.
Is there a moment where Han does that?
No.
I remember Jango Fett doing it, but I don't remember Han doing it.
That's because Woody Harrelson and Jango Fett are the same character. They've backdated it. They're brothers. They're not.
He's just a man trying to make his way in the universe.
Anyway, yeah, so he tries to blackmail them into taking them onto a mission. Woody Harrelson brings over a lieutenant, and he's just like, sorry, a lieutenant. He brings over a lieutenant and gets him chucked in a pit for the beast.
Yeah, you knew where this was immediately going, didn't you? When it was,
obviously, the Sarlacc pit.
Mm-hmm.
No.
The Rancor pit.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, he gets chucked down into a pit where Chewbacca appears.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly designed to kill him.
Yeah.
They are making a Metal Gear Solid movie.
That's been in talk for years.
Yeah.
That's been in production hell. Isn't the game already a movie?
Ooh.
In a way, like 9 hours, 10 hours of cutscenes, like
per act.
Let's be fair, it's going to be terrible. See, this is cheering me, who loves everything. Yes.
Let's stop talking about terrible movies. Let's talk about. Wait.
Oh, yeah, we're still talking about this movie.
Anyway, so he gets struck down for Chewie.
Okay, right. This was the second offense of this movie, which I really didn't care for. So, I will say I liked how they framed the meeting between Han and Chewie. I like that Chewie was, because I think this is in the EU as well. They mentioned in the film that following the droid invasion, I guess in Episode 3. The Wookiees were all taken off Kashyyyk and were all enslaved. I liked that angle with it.
Interestingly, they seem to spend a lot of their time. They don't do a lot of their time not being enslaved. In KOTOR, they get enslaved by Zerka.
Mm.
There's one of the other characters that talks about Wookiee enslavement. The Empire enslaved the Wookiees.
Yeah.
They're just not very good.
They're not very good at their job, which is surprising because when you see them in action, like they're really
good.
Yeah,
especially at carving small X-wings.
Oh,
we don't talk about that film.
Oh, the holiday special. The holiday special. I did a drunken watch along to that, by the way. That's on the channel somewhere.
I remember that.
Please don't anyone watch it. But I like the look of Chewbacca. They say that Han fed him for 3 days, and he did look really bedraggled and actually really imposing when he first comes out the shadows.
That for a film with not great shots, that's shot quite well. Yes, it's already all in the dark anyway, with just the light from the grill.
But that scene's necessary for it to look like that.
But the way he's sort of framed and the way he's positioned over Han, he does look imposing. And they show his power in a way that isn't seen in any other film. I
was going to say, I like what they did with Chewbacca way more in this than what they've done with him in the sequel trilogy. Like, really, what did he do in Last Jedi? He eats a porg, or goes to eat a porg, and then he flies the Falcon a little bit at the end, and that's really it. And I get that it's not his story, but there are stuff you can do with him that you can still make him a badass and everything like that.
Well, it's even in the originals. The most we ever see of him is in, like, 4, where he picks a stormtrooper up and then goes, and chucks him. As opposed to in this one, where he sort of, like, one hand hikes Han across, like, the entire arena.
There's a moment where they're in the mines in this film, and he picks up a trooper and sort of, like, slams him down head first into the ground.
Chewbacca is really good.
Yeah.
And in fact, he looks really good as well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, he looks really nice, actually.
He's very stylish.
It's very stylish. No, his, the costume they've built for it is really good.
I mentioned this to you, and I don't know why this is a thing in the sequel trilogy, but the costume for Chewbacca and the look of him in that looks really cheap compared to what the costume looked like in the original.
Yeah.
The costume for this looks more like Chewbacca. The hair looks more naturalistic. It looks like Chewbacca. The new one looks very smoothed out and very streamlined, and it looks like the hand thing they did with it as well. Do you remember where he like hits them with like the weird little nubby fingers he's got? And even like it doesn't just stem to Chewbacca in the sequel trilogy. The likes of Nien Nunb. If you compare the looks of those characters from Return of the Jedi to the mask they've used for him in the new one, it looks like a knockoff version. I really don't understand it. But no, I love Chewbacca in this thing. The one thing I didn't like is how Han Solo speaks Wookiee, which immediately resolves the conflict. You were brilliant. Like, when he did that, you were like, why did you say that name? And it does feel like that. It feels very rushed.
It properly does feel like the Martha moment.
Like he's about to okay, no, I'm going to stop. I don't see the need for it. And I mean, Brins has been talking in the comments about he thinks that Solo name drop thing was a Phil Lord and Chris Miller thing. It feels like very sort of,
a planned tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
It's just not played very tongue-in-cheek, I don't think.
And you just with Star Wars, you just sort of accept that every character apparently at birth can just speak Wookiee, because everyone can seem to just have a natural conversation with Wookiees.
No, Woody Harrelson can't talk Wookiee. I can't remember his character. Beckett. I'm going to call him Woody Harrelson.
Can't
no, because he has to. Everyone in that group has to have hand translate.
Doesn't Finn not know how to speak Wookiee as well? In
we don't talk about those ones.
They don't exist. They're out of context.
This is in a different timeline.
Yeah,
potentially. No, it's not. I don't know. In this one, only Han seems to be able to speak Wookiee.
Yeah,
which is fine. I don't. There's no explanation as to why, but I don't really care because this film has already shown how it explains stuff.
But Chewbacca can understand.
Basic.
Like what is it? Basic or whatever it's called in this
English, universal language.
Yeah, he can understand English. He doesn't need for someone to speak Wookiee to him, and I don't see.
It's not as bad as the Martha scene.
You're
quite right.
Agreed. I just don't see the point of it, because before that point, Han has conversations with Chewie in English. After that point in the movie, he continues to speak to him in English. There's no other moment at any other point in the saga where he does that.
Yeah, it's just. I think it's just a way of establishing. No, not established. He just catches Chewie's attention with it.
Yeah.
It's just it feels very awkward, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To have Alden
Ehrenreich.
That's the one.
I'll have to back you up on that surname every single time you're going to say it.
Yeah. Reichenbach. It's just very jarring to have a character suddenly start gargling, and you get subtitles for his bits, but not for anybody else's.
I'm just replying to a comment. Give me a second.
That's all right. So I think it's not terrible. It's fine. It's just one of those things that when I noticed it in the movie, I was just kind of...
Yeah, you just kind of roll your eyes. I will say though, the humor in this movie. Would you say? I won't say there's as many jokes in this film as there are in the likes of The Last Jedi or Force Awakens, but the audience felt dead.
Yeah,
probably for the first time I went, there was barely anyone in there to begin with, but
maybe they were just really annoyed with us.
Maybe, but it just didn't feel like there was any kind of energy in the audience or anyone reacting to anything. I didn't hear anyone laugh a single time in this movie.
Nope.
There's a part that happens at the end of a cameo of a villain character, which we'll talk about later on in the movie, where the first time I watched it, people obviously had a reaction, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So they recruit Chewbacca. They're with the team now. They fly off, and we learn that they've got this job where they've got to take some coaxium, was it? I think was the thing. And actually, I brought this up, and you said you was going to mention this, probably save it for the review, but I made mention that this coaxium, which is this really sought-after substance, like can be used for fuel and everything like that, it's also an explosive, is never brought up at any other point in the entire Star Wars saga. But you said there's a point related to this?
Yeah, now I don't know if it is brought up in anything else. But what I was reading in Thrawn, there's a whole plot line in it that runs through the novel about Thrawn's chasing down a sort of smuggler turned rebel who's stealing Dunium, which is a similarly stupidly named
Unobtainium, like Avatar.
But that is being squirreled away for the construction of the Death Star, because it's like it's Starship hull material, which is kind of the same deal. It's not mentioned anywhere. No, there's no bit in the trilogies where Palpatine's sitting there cackling over his Dunium deposits.
The guy's got a lot of stuff to do,
Yeah,
well, he's got his fingers in a lot of pies.
That's what's called Dunium. Stuff done. But I think this is the same sort of thing. It doesn't matter that coaxium doesn't show up, and it obviously doesn't show up because they've just invented it. But it doesn't really matter. It's
a thing that they've got to go after, really, isn't it? Just to get the plot moving. But it immediately throws you into this job.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to talk about more with the villain after we get to this point. And there's this whole elaborate chase. I think I'd say it's the most... I'm not using the word iconic because that word is just thrown around too much now, but it's probably the most memorable action scene of the movie, used in the trailers and everything like
it's
that.
The big trailer moment.
And I'd say the Kessel Run is probably the biggest action moment story-wise, but in terms of the look and everything like that, they really pushed this train sequence. And I think what they were going for is that old serial kind of Western running across the top of a train, decoupling it. It very much reminded me of like a Western in that regard, like the old-timey serials and everything like that.
It reminds you of that. It reminds me of Shadows of the Empire, N64 game, starring what's the character's called? Dash Rendar.
Right.
Who is
yes.
Who is just Han Solo while Han Solo's in Carbonite.
Yeah.
it was a multimedia project. It was a book that doesn't deal with the same elements. The game's about Dash. The book's got him in it, but it's actually about Luke training to be a Jedi. And it introduces it's introduced a character called Shizor, who was the head of a criminal syndicate called Black Sun, which is nothing like Crimson Dawn.
Yeah,
it's contractually and legally separate. But I think what they've done for this is they've adapted that scene, the train scene in the game, and then when we talk about the villain, I think you'll see that actually there's a lot of parallels between Black Sun and the way Shizor operates in that book, and Crimson Dawn and the way their leader operates.
This train sequence, I think, is cool on paper, but the scene just goes on for way too long. The first time I watched this, it felt like it was 12 or 15 minutes long. It isn't that long, but it feels it, and
it's because it's got to introduce the villain who isn't a villain. It introduces the Kylo Ren like.
Yes,
the Marauders. That's it. They've got a proper name, and I can't.
Yeah, I can't remember what they're called.
Sorry, bad Star Wars fan.
But yeah, no, like the costume of that character. I think I said it in the first trailer reaction. It looks like they've taken some of the costumes they had left over, like Kylo Ren, some of the costumes Disney still had left over from Black Panther, and just sort of merged the character together.
Looks all right.
And that's your new character. It was a cool character right up until the end. Yeah. I didn't like what they did with the character at the end.
When she became Aloy from Horizon Zero.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think that in terms of visuals, it is quite a unique scene. Like, we haven't really seen an action scene like this in a Star Wars movie. But I mean, I brought this up to you. The fact that trains exist in a Star Wars universe when you've got ships that have vertical landing and takeoff, why couldn't it just be in a ship and like transport the cargo? The fact that this coaxium is apparently just so unstable, like if it's not refined or anything like that, it could blow up at any point. If you just like accidentally drop it, it's going to be like dynamite and just ignite. And you're going to transport it in a rickety train that's like doing corkscrew spins around the track and like...
and it's suspended like 400 feet above the ground in the mountains.
So you mean to tell me that in the years and years that this thing's been in operation of transporting stuff, there's never been an accident like this? But also the fact that, and I mean, eventually the action scene ends where all the supporting characters die. Well, Thandie Newton's character and the CGI monkey character die.
Can't call him that. It's a name. Whatever it was.
He's got equal rights, damn it. Thandie Newton's sort of like pinned down and she detonates the bridge.
Yeah, I don't know why.
And you pointed this out. You were like, why? I mean, it brings a complete end to the action sequence.
Yeah.
Thank Christ.
I know it's a thing for trains to go over the bridge.
Yeah.
But
it's the ticking time, like the clock, isn't
it? To get one of these things, get a ship and airlift it.
Yeah.
Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't think you need to be... Like, you need a bridge to blow up for that thing to be airlifted.
I think they just needed to pressure Chewbacca a little bit to, like, speed up the process.
You know, it's... Maybe.
Yeah. But...
Not a war action scene.
What I will say, though, with the Jon Favreau CGI monkey character, I'm going to call him that the entire time, so just get used to it. Jon Favreau, okay.
Like Woody Harrelson.
It's very lazy writing where the scene previous, the only shred of character you get is that, I'm not tied down. Like, people have tried to fall in love with me, but I like being on my own. And that's it. The very next scene to then cap that off. And it is the next scene. It's immediately into the heist. He gets shot and he has they're trying to, like, the strings are like kicking in. There's a crescendo. They're making it all emotional. And he's like, I was wrong, kid. You need someone in your life. You need someone to hold on to as love. And then he dies. I'm like, I don't care about anything with this character. Just let the fucker die. Like, he's a means to an end just to get Han Solo in the cockpit. And there's actually a moment, I think he takes over the driving seat and like a smirk comes up his face and he's like, yeah, I'm doing the job I want to.
No, that's
like pushes the carcass.
That's in the Falcon a bit later.
Oh, is it? I thought he does it.
He's
I
not
think there's
that
like
cold that he smirks at the dead Jon Favreau.
Throws the corpse out GTA style and just starts piloting the... Yeah, and like Val dies as well, and there's like they hint that she's in a relationship. Well,
they
not
hint. She's not him on screen.
Yeah,
right?
She's in a relationship with him, and like
how many hints do you need, Chris?
But like, I did actually like that about his character, in that he's meant to be, you know, he's in the relationship with his character, but as soon as she dies, because he says that don't trust anyone and you'll never be disappointed, you can tell that he's okay. Like, he's probably loved and lost loads of people throughout the years.
Get, like, just brushed. brushed aside. That's how unimportant these characters were.
Well, exactly, and I just think that even if you were going to kill them off earlier on, you could have still given these characters some impact. It felt like in the first half hour or so, it was a rush to the next action scene, and it didn't feel like that. I think they could have had a little bit more downtime with these characters. Maybe it would have made the movie a lot longer, though.
So they, so the job finishes. It's all gone tits up.
Yeah.
Turns out this was, I think all jobs might be like this in the Star Wars universe, because it turns out they had to do this job for a crime lord, otherwise they're all going to get killed.
Yeah,
it was like the big job he needed to do, kind of like all of them. It's the same with the Jabba the Hutt ones from the other ones.
Yeah,
so it was, I just don't got the money job. Anyway, so he's like, oh, it's you don't cross the Crimson Dawn, are our crime syndicate, led by some guy,
Paul Bettany.
That's it. Led by.
Now, I'm going to bring up the actor's name because originally this was in the reshoots. I think it was in the reshoots. They had a guy cast. I'm just trying to find out who it was. Dryden Voss. Yeah, originally they had Michael K. Williams, and he was going to be the villain of the film, and he was going to be a motion capture character. I think they referred to him that he was going to look like a lion. I really don't think that would have worked. I like the direction they went with Paul Bettany. The problem is, I love Paul Bettany in this. I really liked the character's persona, how he had this social face where he'd like be shaking people's hands, and like he's essentially got like it did remind me of Jabba the Hutt, actually, like the sail barge, how he's throwing a party on there, there's drinks everywhere, all things like that, all manner of pleasures going on, and he's shaking hands with people and he's eating food, but he's also like this really psychopathic crime boss in the background.
If you reminded me of anyone, it was sort of just an Imperial officer. Do you know what I mean? Someone like Tarkin.
Yeah, kind of
polite company, but also horrible. I didn't like him.
I think the problem with this film is that, and I think that, well, the film has many problems. One of the problems, I really liked his character, but his character doesn't have much of an impact on the film in that he's not present. I like the look of the character. I like the persona of the character, and I think that Paul Bettany plays it brilliantly with what he's given, but he shows up in like 2 scenes. He sort of sets the mission in place, saying like, "Don't fail me again, or I'll kill you." And then they go back to him at the end, and it's all,
failed me, now you're all dead.
Yeah, but even like you think of every other Star Wars film, like the original Star Wars, you've got Tarkin, you've got Vader, and they're kind of your main bad guy all the way through. You have a constant bad guy. You know, it changes bad guys very much in the prequels, but you have one consistent bad guy who they're going after. Sequel trilogy, you've got Kylo Ren, and Rogue One, you had that Krennic character who carried that antagonist role. In this, you really don't get it. It's just sort of very situational based each time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that structure hurt the film. I'd have liked to have seen Bettany play more of be a bit more proactive in this film, show up a lot more, be that constant threat.
I don't know. I was exasperated with Dryden Voss. I just don't know. The social face and psychopathic face is just a very typical trope. That just doesn't excite me. And I don't think he was played that well.
See, I know I really like Paul Bettany. What I didn't like was this is the moment where this is a big pivotal moment for Han Solo in that he bumps into Kira again. And he finds that, you know, she's been working under this organization. I don't think he specifically knows in what role at that point. And I think by the end of the movie, he still doesn't know because she essentially becomes the new crime overlord of.
Well, he's just told she's a lieutenant.
Yeah,
they have a little moment at the party, and I don't know. I
don't like Han's reaction there because in that moment, like this, 3 years have gone by. He's been, you know, trying to get some money together to travel back to Corellia to like save her and everything like that, and to meet up with her. And then he just sees her here and he doesn't have any questions. He's just really cool with it. That character should be fuming, or he should have some emotional response to seeing her character again.
It could just be that he's really, really stupid.
Well, she seems really dismissive. She doesn't seem like she cares at all, like separate ways. I think she even says like at one moment that was in the past.
Yeah, it's just, I wonder, do you think that's the cut-off point where that we had a movie planned, the 2 guys like, no, forget it. We've got this new movie now. What's the point, isn't it? It's like a big breaking point because actually, after this, it's all about Kessel.
Yeah.
Small point. I mentioned this a couple times in the movie. The design for Dryden Voss's ship. It's like a huge blade, pillory tower thing with engines on the bottom. It just sort of cuts this way. It looks fucking wicked.
Yeah, it's very good. Really
one of the
design.
coolest Star Wars ships I've ever seen.
Yeah, I liked the interior. I mentioned that it felt very Fifth Element-y, and I don't know if you saw that as well.
You've got quite as good.
No, you got. It's a very weird movie.
It's a great movie.
It's a very strange movie. You've got this singer on the stage, decked out all in gold.
You've got like a Dalek head.
Yeah, like a backing singer, and it's very weird, but it kind of works in Star Wars. It feels very different.
Star Wars is allowed to be weird.
Yeah,
you know? It's good. I don't mind Star Wars being weird, and it's not like suddenly this was. They might have a novel about these two characters now, for all I know.
Oh, probably
touring with Max Rebo. But you know, they weren't. They were just incidental. It was just like, look, that's the world building thing again.
Yeah.
Look, here's a weird one. Here's a bit of cultural music for you to listen to. Mm-hmm. Here's what people in Star Wars listen to. They don't all listen to Slayer. I don't know.
Or Size Noodles.
Size Noodles. They don't all listen to Jedi Rock.
Oh God. I do want to actually get the blue. Well, actually, I probably won't buy the Blu-ray of this. I'm lying to myself at this point. But
Blu-ray and then color correct it.
Yes, but I forgot his name. Dryden Voss's room. Like, there's a lot of
call him Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany. There's a lot of things. He looks like a treasure collector. He almost looks like Thrawn in that regard. How he has a love for art and artifacts and things like that. And I swear to God, you can see the crystal skull.
There's definitely a crystal skull.
Yeah,
it's a big fact.
That's a great sign, isn't it? You got to shoehorn it back to that glorious.
Maybe it will turn into Indiana Jones.
Maybe.
There's definitely like Mandalorian armor.
Yeah, because I remember
very much like Boba Fett.
When the pictures came out, like the way it was framed, it didn't look like it was just a suit of armor just on display. It looked like it was actually a character in the background. So people thought, Boba Fett's in this movie.
Mm.
And I did, like, initially in the lead up, I did think they were going to condense a lot more stuff from Solo's life into this movie. I thought we were going to get Jabba the Hutt. I thought we were going to get Boba Fett.
Thank God we didn't.
That would be the sequel. They do name, well, they don't name drop him, but they
talk about Jabba.
Yeah, they say like there's a new deal going down with a big time gangster on Tatooine, and of course it's Jabba the Hutt.
It's not very nice calling him big. He's big time. He's just, you know, he's a Hutt. He can't help it.
He's big boned.
He's big boned. He's a big lad, big boy.
So
so they get this chat with Dryden Voss, who's introduced by killing someone with what I can only describe as really, really shit, like laser knuckles.
Yeah, they're like, it's like a knuckle duster, but it's also like a blade as well.
And they've got like a little vibro edge,
like a lightsaber kind of effect. Yeah,
they look dreadful.
Yeah,
sorry, they're really impractical in a world with laser swords.
Later on in the film, he has a sword fight, and Kira's got like this huge sword, and he's just like fighting with his little shuriken dagger thing.
Did you notice the sword had a hole in the middle?
Yeah,
so he just
melts it. They cut through bone like butter.
Star Wars has got rubbish weapons. Whoever designs weapons in Star Wars needs firing. Like in universe. Anyway, so he talks to Paul Bettany, talks to Woody Harrelson, and Han and Chewie.
We forgot that part.
I'm quite happy. Han Solo had to explain how his name came in. Also, apparently needed a scene where he went, "What's your name, Chewbacca?" Oh, that's 3 syllables. That's too many. I'm maximum a 2-syllable man. I'll call you something different. They don't say Chewie.
No.
They're just like, oh, I'll give you a nickname, eh?
It's like that. That can just like naturally happen throughout the movies at some point.
Is it so out there that when I first met you all those years back, I didn't stop and go, Christopher.
That's too long.
That's not going to work.
You need a nickname. I'm going to call you Chris. Wow.
But now you know, but that's our backstory.
Yes, that's our origin story. We don't have 250 mil to fucking spend on one.
Anyway, so they get the job to steal some more coaxium.
Yeah.
But to do it, they have to do the Kessel Run.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big questions of Star Wars, I guess, that it's fine that this one is answered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind this one being answered because it was a big thing where they introduced Han Solo in the originals as the man who made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. And you're like, what the hell's the Kessel Run? And for years, you know, is it a smuggling run? Kind of, as we find out. Is it like a
race?
A race? Yeah, could be, sort of. There's an element of racing against time in this. Is it a really difficult sort of asteroid sort of field or something? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things it could be. And it's good that this answers it. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I kind of like the way they did it. It's not how I would have imagined.
But for this movie, it was fine.
So the whole point of it is, to get the coaxium, we need to do the Kessel Run because coaxium is unstable and it explodes. So the plan is Let me see if I remember all this.
So it's get the coaxium.
They go to a mine.
Yes, because it's unrefined.
Get unrefined coaxium. Unrefined coaxium explodes quickly. To do that, they have to get through the Kessel Run, which is incredibly difficult maelstrom of asteroids and stuff. So
they need a map, a navigational chart to get through it in the quickest possible time.
And they need the fastest ship they can get.
Yeah. Kira knows a guy, turns out to be Lando, whose first mate is a droid who has apparently the most, impressive schematics on, galactic travel and everything like that.
So I would say that at that point, that's all this needed to be. It could have started there.
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't mind the stuff in Corellia or whatever for a given value of minded, but like that's the amount of explanation that needed.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's fine. That's a good plot for a movie. It's disappointing that it takes nearly 45 minutes or something stupid to get to the actual plot.
There's a lot of setup for the Han Solo character that I don't think needed to be there. And I actually, I know we're ragging on this movie quite a lot.
I don't think we've done that much ragging.
No, like there's the parts that we have are genuine moments of criticism that, we had to have. But although I still don't fully like this movie and it's a very average movie, I did actually enjoy it more watching this second time. I guess with a Star Wars movie, when you first watch it, you're just sort of taking it in and this just underwhelmed me. Second time, I was aware of everything that was going to happen, so I could kind of relax a little bit more with it. And actually, I didn't hate Alden's performance in this watching it again. It just doesn't feel like Han Solo. If you look at this film as a purely just a sci-fi heist movie, it's fine. As a setup for this character, like he has none of the charm, he has none of the charisma of what Han Solo is, and it doesn't feel like Han Solo. One film that I'd compare this to, which is a good thing, I don't know if you watched it, Ridley Scott's Robin Hood film with Russell Crowe that came out about 2010.
Did I? No, I didn't watch that one.
The last 2 minutes of that
movie... For me, Robin Hood died with Prince of Thieves. That was the last good Robin Hood movie.
You've got the Disney version and you've got Prince of Thieves.
Oh, Men in Tights. I'll give you that.
Men in Tights. But the last 2 minutes of Ridley Scott's Robin Hood movie are great because it's the Robin Hood That's what you wanted. But the entire movie is just pointless. It doesn't feel like it. And that's kind of what I feel like with Han Solo with this one. Everything setting up his character is kind of pointless because obviously you've seen the original trilogy, you know the outcome. So all this love story with Kira, he eventually meets up with Princess Leia, who's the love of his life. And before that point, you kind of see him as the Han that I know would see Kira and he'd just sort of like wave her off. Like she gets collared at the checkpoint and he'd just be like, whatever, and go about his own way.
I don't know. He was never callous. The thing with Kira is, yes, it's a foregone conclusion. Obviously, he ends up with Leia. But the answer to that they found was, well, we have to do something with her character. And the only answers I think Disney ever have for that question is kill them off or
have them betray them or something like that.
Yeah, do an action that just sounds dumb.
Yeah.
And this one has a really, really dumb end.
Yeah. With the character of Kira specifically, or just in general?
Kira, definitely. There are other things I will talk about.
Yeah.
But before that, there's the Kessel Run. So he goes...
This is where they go to Lando.
Yeah,
now,
they meet Lando.
Yeah. And there's like a giant mammoth skull for some reason that's quite obviously...
Played by Donald Glover.
What, the mammoth skull? Played by Donald?
Yeah, he's double acted. It's got the little hairdo as well.
Yeah.
This is America after all. So he goes into the bar under the wonderful, beautiful piss yellow light.
Yeah.
Disgusting. They cut all the colour out of it. He sees Lando. He's playing a game of sabacc, which is space poker.
It's space poker. There really isn't much creativity with this at all, really, in terms of the Spock game, is it? No. Red Letter Media pointed this out in that the one line you get in Empire Strikes Back is when Han goes like, "Hey, you wanted to be fair and square." So Star Wars fans took that, won it to me, and thought that immediately must mean a card game or some form of like gambling or something like that. So let's talk Donald Glover for first with Lando being in this movie. Did you like Donald Glover's performance as Lando?
No. Like is too strong a word. It was fine-ish.
There are moments where he does sound like Billy D, and he is chasing after that impersonation of Billy D. There's some moments where he loses it a lot.
I have to say, I wasn't going into it looking for him to be like Billy D.
Yeah.
with Alden, yeah, you want him to be like Han because Han.
Yeah.
But Lando is the only things we kind of have about his character at this point in terms of, pre his sort of face turn in Jedi, or if you prefer the latter stages of Empire, is that he's kind of a bit of he's flirtatious, he's very ostentatious, he's very kind of he's very fancy. He clearly has a sort of like ego about him that he has a head for control, hence why he's in charge of Cloud City. And really, that's all Glover needed to channel. I didn't mind if he didn't have the same sort of voice and style as Billy D. And I think in that respect, he's good. He does sort of succeed. He's clearly very like, he's kind of very like, aha, look at me, I've got all this sort of flash, and
he's got a whole wardrobe full of capes in this movie because
I would expect
Lando wore one cape in Empire Strikes Back.
Listen, it's the only. Don't even get me on terms of Lando's clothes, because there's something else we're going to talk about Lando's clothes, and that I'm not happy about either. Anyway, so I think he captures kind of the imagery of Lando, and I don't mind it doesn't sound like Lando. There's some stuff about him that I just think doesn't match in some ways, and I don't really rate. I don't rate his performance, but I don't mind it.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I think
it was perfectly satisfactory.
What they did was they wrote and had a vision of Lando in terms of storyboarding and directing and costume design, and they picked a very flamboyant actor to play him, or if you prefer, they picked an actor who played him flamboyantly, which is right. But the actual lines, the delivery, the everything else, I was just like, it's not very good. It's very flat. Lando, if you stripped it away from it and you just had Donald Glover on its own, I don't think you would have anything compelling there.
Yeah,
he's because he has the same character voice as Han. He has the same character voice as QI''RA, and you have the same character voice as every other character who's not Chewbacca and the droid L3.
Yeah. I didn't mind Donald Glover, and I was actually trying to think of another actor you could have got to play this role, and I genuinely struggled to think who you could get it. I think he was fine. I do agree with you that
Chris Pratt, he's in everything.
Robert Downey Jr. from Tropic Thunder. Just get him in blackface again.
I agree that he was probably the right actor to play it.
It was just a question of the material you're talking about, what he had to work with, sort of thing. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. I did like the Sabacc game, and we're sort of introduced to that Lando doesn't play by the rules. He's kind of got this Assassin's Creed Hidden Blade kind of thing where he cheats with an extra card. Oh boy, then we're introduced to L3.
Yeah,
LGBT as I call her, which I believe I referred to in my spoiler-free.
I think that's a little bit harsh. She's annoying.
I'm fine with there being a robot character, and actually George mentioned in the spoiler review that he did the spoiler-free, that he thought this was a Phil Lord and Chris Miller invention, how you've got this droid pushing for equal rights in the droid community, which is fine. I'm fine with that. The problem is there is nothing else to her character. Every single line is pertaining her to being an activist, to being kind of a feminist as well, and everything like that. And it feels like it was I'm fine with there being progressive characters in Star Wars, but it did feel like a studio thing to push for a character like that.
That's the point I would say, is there's nothing wrong with any of it, but
the way it's handled.
It's handled very clunkily.
Yeah.
When I say I have nothing against it, actually, I think I do have something against it. I don't like I think the equal rights thing, as ham-handed and heavy-fisted it is, where else is that in Star Wars?
Yeah, none of the other droids. There's one moment from A New Hope where they go into the bar, but C-3PO is very accepting of it. They go into the cantina bar and the bartender's like, hey, they need to get out. We don't serve their kind in here.
We don't serve your kind here. I've never heard that line before, and it definitely didn't appear in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Anyway, so the point about it is, fuck, I hate this moment in the film. Anyway, sorry.
We get a cameo from Clint Howard, is it? Ron Howard's brother.
Great. It's saved. This is something they thought of for the character. They thought of it for this movie. But it's nowhere else. You'd not think if Disney could have not gone any inkling of it in any other film, in the franchise. There's nothing about it in 7. There's nothing about it in Rogue One. There's not even. I don't need a character to stand there. Like, you could have just had some sort of idea of the wider world of Star Wars that includes droids that have escaped the issues of memory wiping and have become more sentient and have developed this. But no, you know, C-3PO is servile completely. R2-D2 has a mouth on him, but he's servile.
Most of the droids all serve a function, don't they?
Alan Tudyk he has a mouth on him, but he doesn't break kayfabe of being a droid. You know, but before L3, the most rebellious droid we've got is Red.
Yeah.
Blows a gasket in protest.
Wasn't there something in the I swear to God this was in the canon somewhere.
Or the Gonk who has to get his feet burned in possibly the saddest moment in all of Star Wars.
It's just all the other droids in Star Wars, they have been that subservient race kind of thing. They all do serve a function. Like R2-D2 is forced to serve drinks. You've got droids that are working for Jabba, which it doesn't seem like they really have a choice about it, but they're not going against it. You've got protocol droids. You've got TC-14 who delivers tea and is kind of just there to, you know,
tea and poison gas.
Yes. But yeah, the humor of it, the fact that a droid's like that, it is different. And I think they could have handled that in a different way if they did want to go with that. To me, it felt like they were ticking a box that the sassy droid worked well in Rogue One. People responded well to that. Let's get another sassy robot here. Yeah. That's what it felt like to me with it.
It's a different kind of sassy robot. It fell flat for me.
But the sentient thing, you're right. Like, there's never been an inclination that another droid has been like that. Like,
and bearing in mind this is a prequel, and they set off a robot rebellion, and yet there's still nothing following it.
Yeah, and what's so good about this L3 droid? Like, she apparently has the most expansive map of the entire universe. Why? Why specifically? What's so special about that droid? Why she has it?
That's fine. Lando. I don't mind that.
Yeah,
that being an unexplained thing. It's perhaps the only thing in the film not explained.
Yeah,
that's fine though. Lando's that. Yeah, I think you could put that under the umbrella of allowing you to suspend that disbelief because no, it's Lando's droid. That's fine.
And then they introduced the whole fact that she might want to be in some kind of physical relationship with Lando.
You see, this annoys me. They play it as a joke, but then the director comes out and goes, "Oh, Lando's pansexual." If it's not on screen, it's not representation. It doesn't count. Shut up.
What I have actually looked at the article of that, and I do think it has been blown out of proportion a little bit. Apparently,
how dare you?
Lawrence Kasdan was in an interview.
Well, that's the first mistake.
And like the interviewer said, like, would you say that Lando is pansexual? And he went like, I don't know. Yeah.
There you go.
And then people took that and went like, Lando's pansexual, like,
which is believable for the character. And it's, well, I don't know.
I don't actually mind, like, I don't mind him being flirtatious with other races and stuff like that.
You see, Brings is saying there, the human and droid relationship is weird. I don't know. I don't think it is because it's space. It's Star Wars. It's as close to being just, you know, this is a series about space wizards who can fly through space quite literally.
Why can't we have humans fucking robots?
It just doesn't make. I don't really care.
Yeah.
If it had been like a more obvious thing in it, and it's not that unobvious.
Yeah.
But if it'd been more obvious, yeah, fine, whatever. I don't really care. It's just another bit of Lando's character that they've added in the UK. Well,
yeah. It seems like that whole subtext though of
it's not like you walk in on him like sort of in
the bended L3 over, just like
I really like this exhaust port.
There's a really awkward line in there, though, a really uncomfortable line, which is almost as uncomfortable as Maz Kanata's line from Last Jedi, where C-3PO is like, "It sounds like this master codebreaker can do just about anything." She's like, "Oh yes, he can," and they're just there like, "I need a shower right now. This is just disgusting." They let children watch this movie. Like she says that, I've often thought about being in a close relationship with Lando, but like it would never, it
would never work.
Sometimes I think about it, and then Kira goes like, "Well, how would that work?" And she goes, "Oh, trust me, it would work." And
the thing is,
I'm thinking of
it's just a really blue joke.
Yeah,
that doesn't land.
I was saying to you, like, what is it, like a thermal exhaust port?
It's only 2 meters wide.
It's just
bullseye them. My T16 back home.
And like a film that deals with robot and human relations, like
they can do it, but they'll get Guillermo del Toro.
Well, I mean, I've seen it in countless other sci-fi movies that do it really well. It's like a mature subject matter that can be intellectually and ethically discussed in films. Ex Machina, for example, was a great film that did that. Recently, Blade Runner 2049, there's a quote-unquote sex scene between a hologram and a human, which is actually really kind of a beautiful scene, and actually in the moment and the situation of the character, you kind of buy it. But that works for like a really high brain movie of like Blade Runner level that has something to say about that. In a Star Wars movie, do you need that quality to it? And especially because they mention it, but it's never sort of really developed and nothing really comes of it. And it's just sort of dropped in there.
I think what you've got is sort of the essential juxtaposition or the problem, as it were, with Disney, with Star Wars in general, not just Disney Star Wars, is that because it's a light-hearted space fantasy, it will never try and do that. But it's happy to pay lip service to the ideas, but it's never going to develop them, and it kind of can't because it's a serial. And that's fine. It can be a serial. It can be fun. But Percy MVR, Rogue One is the least Star Wars movie of the Star Wars movies, in my opinion. This has elements of Star Wars, and this is what I mean. It's got elements of Disney Star Wars as more than it's got elements of any other Star Wars.
Yeah,
which is it's fine if that's what you're into. I'm not. It's fine. Anyway, so they all join up. We've got the third version of the Millennium Falcon because Lego need a few more kits. It looks really ugly in this.
It's really bulky. It doesn't have any of the definition.
Can I just say something about this, actually? So obviously, there's an explanation for why the Millennium Falcon has a perfectly formed rectangular dink. They crash land, obviously, which is obnoxious, annoying, many other things you could label at this movie as a whole. But do you know how it has that in the originals? Not in the originals, the film, and in the expanded universe, I should say. It's the idea is it's a Corellian, it's a freighter. So you would have.
Is it like to dock or something like that?
You would have, let's say, like say freight like this.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Samsung, and you would where it's got that gap, it sits in like a little gravity pull there.
Yeah.
In between the two prongs, and that's why the cockpit is mounted on the side, so you can still see and drive. That's a perfectly reasonable, almost like hard sci-fi explanation as to why this ship looks stupid.
Yeah.
As opposed to in this one where it's like, I hit a thing, I hit a rock, and it made a perfectly rectangular dent.
Well, it makes you wonder, like now you've said that, like, is that still the original design of the ship, and Lando sort of like built a casing around it, which then broke off?
If Lando had built anything on it, it would be a cape.
Yeah. It's just,
and they never
knock-ips.
And also, I guess he builds another gun on it as well at some point, because they only have one gun in this, and once it gets knocked out, they can't attack anything above it.
Oh, that's true.
Which I don't know. That was part of the scene I liked. So
yeah,
I'll give it a pass. That's quite a good one.
Whereabouts are we up to in the plot now? So
they've got Lando on board. They've got the ships. So the Kessel Run, for the way it works is there's a huge, great big sort of space storm.
Well, we need to talk about the mining thing first, don't we?
That comes first because they go through it to get to the mining planet.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
There's a huge, great big space storm called the Maelstrom, and it has a path marked out through it.
Yeah.
With little floaty space lights. I don't know how that works. Everything moves. But anyway, little floaty space lights, and you follow it along, and it takes 20 parsecs or something like that. It takes ages. I don't know how long a parsec is. I don't know how anything. Time in Star Wars is very inconsistent.
Well, I was going to say a parsec is a measure of distance, not time.
Yeah. So,
but like, I think George Lucas fucked that up originally.
It's just Star Wars.
He took a it's because a parsec is a real thing.
Yeah.
It seems like he took that and went like, oh, this makes it sound like it was done in less time, but actually it's distance.
It's a good sentence.
Yeah.
Sounds like a cool sentence.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it takes 20 parsecs through this maelstrom, and nobody goes through the rest of it because it's a completely uncharted mess. No one knows what it is. They get to this planet, whatever it's called. It's got a name. I don't care.
I can't remember. A mining planet where
Planet 1.
Yeah.
It's perhaps the first original planet in Star Wars. It's not snowy. It's not a city planet. It's not a lava planet. It's not a desert planet. I'll give you Naboo. Naboo was possibly the first original planet in Star Wars. It's not a jungle planet. It's just a mining planet. No, it's not the original. Utapau's a mining planet.
Yeah.
I scratch all that. This movie's rubbish.
It did actually remind me how when Obi-Wan lands in episode 3 and there's like that weird pinhead guy that sort of like walks out and invites him. It did remind me of that a little bit when we get there. But this is where we need to talk about that other thing that pissed us off in terms of Lando's wardrobe. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So
they arrive on the planet and they're like, oh, we need a plan because they're not going to let us walk in there and just take their thing. They need to do a heist. the idea is that
what was the idea?
Amidala, we'll call her that. Who cares? She's just generic.
Emilia Clarke.
Daenerys walks around in like the most stereotypical evil clothes ever.
Mm.
It's all red and black capes.
Yeah.
That's for when Lando's like, I need to betray somebody. And apparently I have women's dresses. I'm not going to judge. That's fine. But,
yeah,
it's Lando. Who cares? It's good. Nice. Anyway.
Good for him.
So I've made a deal out of that. I shouldn't have made a deal out of that. So yeah, she comes down in this evil dress, and Han and Chewie, because they're the only characters, have to be the ones who are in chains.
Yeah. They didn't quite go after what I thought they would do. I thought they were going to do the whole handcuff thing from A New Hope with Chewie in the handcuffs.
Close enough. So, and they're like, we'll put you in as slaves, and they're supposed to sort of disrupt the Temple of Doom mines.
It's very
the Temple of Doom. They're making Indiana Jones Star Wars canon.
They're freeing like the little Indian kids in the mines.
This is Lego Star Wars' fault because Indiana Jones was in that.
Oh, of course,
Indiana Jones Star Wars.
Alden Ehrenreich's going to get cast as a young Indiana Jones. It's going to happen.
Anyway, while Woody Harrelson goes in and disrupts the defenses along with L3 and Padme. So I don't care what her name. Kira. Who gives a shit? So I don't anyway. He comes out. Well, how could we disguise Woody Harrelson? This person who these guys have never seen, probably. Mm-hmm. No idea who he looks like. Well, we need to disguise him.
Yeah.
It's the disguise Lando has from episode 6, Chris.
Yeah. Jabba's palace outfit now.
The thing with the tusks that looks like it belongs in Jabba's palace.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure there's other guards there.
Yep, that have some. Yeah, I think the Rancor Keeper has something similar.
I'm gonna leave. I hate some bits of this movie.
I debated with George long and hard on this costume, and he settled on the fact that, of course, Lando would have that costume. Like, he would go to Jabba's palace, he would like throw some costume on, and he would go there. But I was with you. It looked very much like the other guards in Jabba's palace. Now, me, like, obviously, I don't read all the expanded universe. I don't know if this was ever explained or not.
No.
My continuity is that when Luke and everyone was setting up this plan to infiltrate Jabba's palace, Lando probably like snuck up, got a guard, like grabbed him, like choked him unconscious, and took his clothes, and then went into the palace.
This is why you should read Shadows of the Empire, because it actually deals with the planning of how they did that, and it's really, really ramshackle.
Yeah,
it totally falls apart.
Yeah,
they're like, as part of it, to infiltrate the Black Sun, Leia dresses up as the bounty hunter Boushh. Who's recently been killed. He was a Black Sun mercenary who gets killed because he betrays them. And they're like, well, we just have this sitting about. So she's like, I will nick this and I will become Boushh. And whatever. And Chewbacca like dyes his hair grey and puts a thing in his eye and he's like, I'm somebody else, whoever my name is, a different guy. I'll lose this disguise before the film. Doesn't matter. I can be anybody. I'll be Alden. I'll be Woody Harrelson. Who cares? But this was anyway, so. And they're like, yes, well, we'll use these, and we can use these to infiltrate Jabba's palace. Lando's not involved at this point. He's doing fuck all in this movie. He does nothing in that. He does something in the book, but it's basically nothing. And then when it all goes wrong, Luke's on Tatooine, just sort of doing a montage, trying to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
And then it goes, something's gone wrong. I better go do something. But he has bad plans. Like he sends C-3PO in and R2-D2 in with his lightsaber.
Yeah.
Doesn't think
because he knows that things are going to go to shit, and
he's a Jedi. Could he not just like, this weapon, the best one? Nah, I'll just go in. I'll fist fight Jabba. That'll work. He's a moron.
Yeah,
he's really, really. Anyway, he's thick. Speaking of thick people, this movie, everyone in it. No,
are we tying it to Lando's costume or?
Oh yeah, it's not part of it. It's just that's what Jabba's guards wear.
Yeah.
Why does he have it?
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking, and like I made a big deal about it to George, and as I said, but like George was okay with it, and I guess I'm okay with it in the moment, but it's just like it's another one of those references that really doesn't need to be there.
The only reason he has it is for people to go, I recognise that. And frankly, that's not film writing. That's lazy.
That's just reference writing, isn't it? Yeah.
You could put everything I know about film writing on the back of my hand, but one of those, but all you can see is the word. Don't be stupid about your references. It's not. Do you know what it is? This is, I'm going to piss myself off with saying this. I can already see it in my head. I don't want to say it. It's going to annoy me. This is the film equivalent I know there's already a film of this.
Ready Player One.
But it's the film equivalent. It's the Star Wars equivalent of Ready Player One.
Yeah, I know you hated Ready Player One, didn't you, reading the book?
I've read the book. I've seen the film. I would rather, rather wear copper armor and piss off a mountain in a thunderstorm shouting "Gods are bastards" than have to subject myself to what is unquestionably the most offensive and worst piece of media and entertainment this world has produced.
Until Wreck-It Ralph 2 Breaks the Internet comes out.
That's probably better, but only marginally. Anyway, yeah, because that's not going to be transphobic and like full of hate speech for women. Whereas Ready Player One,
the movie wasn't like that. They streamlined the movie a lot more.
Oh, you they went, let's just take out these bits that you can't say.
Yeah, and add a great Shining scene into the movie.
Oh, I don't care. Because I hated it.
That's our review for Ready Player One.
Don't take me to see it.
Solo's not off the hook yet. We've still got to talk about the entire ending.
Sorry, yeah. Anyway, they go in. Who cares about what happens? They instigate a robot rebellion and successfully steal stuff.
This is where I hated L3, by the way.
Yeah.
We need to talk about her voice. So I can't remember the actress's name who actually plays her in the movie, but from the trailers came out, she sounds exactly like Gwendolyn Christie as Captain Phasma, like almost identical. But she has this lilt to her voice where it becomes like every single time is a one-liner related to this. It's like, so glad we took this job. I found my true purpose now. Like all that stuff. And it's just shut the fuck up. It's like C-3PO in Attack of the Clones when he keeps dropping puns every single time in the Coliseum. And it's just like, shut the fuck up.
But compare it, Rogue One, Alan Tudyk's robot, whose name was completely escaped.
K2SO.
That's it.
Yeah.
All of his lines are quips.
Yeah.
They're all miserable, sarcastic, hate-filled quips, and they're quite good.
Yeah.
The writing is just... I know I've said a lot about Rogue One, but it begs the comparison. L3's shite.
Yeah.
They're written by the 25-man committee who put together this film.
Yeah.
You know?
And anyway, there's another moment where a character that we really don't care about or we actively dislike is killed off. And L3 is shot multiple times, and you're like, oh no.
There's even a funny moment where Lando picks her up and her torso falls apart. I had a chuckle there. I don't think I'm psychopathic, but frankly, fuck off.
It's like, I think we could put you back together. Shit.
That's inconsistent. It's sad. It's supposed to be sad. You know, why are you making a joke about it?
Oh, there's one moment I wanted to talk about. That, but in the mines, when the trailers came out, there was a shot where Chewbacca...
Hello there, Orban.
Hey, Orban. There's a shot where Chewbacca sort of, gets one of the Wookiees and sort of like rests his head on the other Wookiee, like a sort of, like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But when I originally saw that, it looked different to Chewbacca, so I thought, is that like a female Wookiee? And then my mind went reeling, and I thought, oh my God, is this going to be Marla? Is this going to be... Because I thought... They said they were going to like bring up the whole Wookiee enslavement thing, but I thought that was going to be a much bigger deal than what it actually was. We really don't see that many Wookiees. There's about like 3 or 4 in the mines that you see in the background, but there's only really one that they focus on. I thought, are they going to... Is this going to be their nod to the holiday special? Like, is Marla going to be in this? Is Chewbacca going to have a family? And they do mention that maybe Chewbacca is trying to get back to his family, but unfortunately we still don't see them. I really wish that had been Marla. And maybe it was. I don't think it would have been, but
for all my bitching references, why is that the one I would agree with?
Yeah, I would be so down with the holiday special reference.
I don't mind that. That would be okay.
Yeah, or like if Han could have said like, "Do you have any family?" and could have said like, "I have a wife and a kid" or something like that.
I've got an old man who carves X-wings all day long.
We've got an old grandpa Wookiee that watches porn videos for some reason.
He does, yeah.
And a son that likes watching Jefferson Starship,
who canonically exists in the Star Wars universe. That's the Star Wars music. It's either MIDI versions of the Imperial March, it's Snice Noodles, Max Rebo, it's the opera singer from this one.
Oh, it's
Jefferson Starship.
Don't forget that other one in the Cantina bar. The barmaid, when the Empire are shutting them down, she like breaks into song.
That's true, yeah.
Oh God, the holiday special.
Yeah, we've watched.
He's talking to Orban. Yeah.
Anyway, so where do we go? Yeah. There's not really any point. Nothing of note happens in it. Action happens, and it's okay. There's a big droid rebellion.
Yeah.
It happens like that. There's Chewie frees Wookiees primarily off screen.
Yeah. They probably got apprehended right after they flew off in the ship.
Yeah.
They didn't have any transport to get off the planet, so they're fucked again.
I thought they'd all be crammed on the Millennium Falcon. yeah, nothing of note happens. Some nice costumes get wrecked.
Yeah.
Good costumes in this film. Something they've done well in the I like them. I like the guy with the wiggly movie out mask at the start. I like the guy we see here with the sort of fume pipes into his mouth.
I did. It seems like every single new Star Wars film that comes out, there has to be a new way of creating a new stormtrooper in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And I liked the ones earlier on the train sequence that had sort of like the Parker jackets and like the gravity boots that, you know, refused the ship.
You might want to open.
Wow, Brinsley says, I just texted my mate a spoiler for Infinity War. He's only 30 minutes into his screening now. Brinsley, you are the worst human being alive. Although I did spoil the entire movie for you earlier as well. Yeah, you spoiled the
entire thing for me.
You just don't care about the Marvel movies. I thought you were actually going to...
Auburn, just, be aware this is entirely spoiler-filled.
Yeah, we are going through the entire film. We're about 3/4 of the way through, so if you still haven't seen it, go and watch our spoiler-free review again. We are having a lot of fun on this one, though. We are basically just ragging on the entire movie.
Go watch his spoiler-free review. Don't necessarily watch the film. I'll get the sound up. Probably for the best.
I wonder what the viewing experience would be if you had no sound on right now. You can make up your own lines of dialogue.
Me doing this and falling out like a prick.
So what? They get all the coaxium and they're flying away, and then we enter the Kessel Run.
So this is the other bloody gorgeous shot of the Star Destroyer.
Yeah, and we get the old bit of music, the bum 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 as it comes out, and you're like,
it's fantastically framed. You've seen it if you've seen any of the trailers, because it's just the money shot in the trailers, and like all money shots, nothing happens with it. Unfortunately, there's no big there's a sort of chase.
They send out the TIE fighters, don't they? And
that shot is brilliant. You know, it's framed like perfectly in this big swirling vortex.
There's just something like Rogue One did this the best, I would say. There's just something so imposing of boom, a Star Destroyer coming out of light speed and hitting there. My favorite bit of Rogue One is where Vader's ship comes out and like the rebellion are making their jump to hyperspace, and then boom, it comes out and they're just like crashing into it and exploding. I love that shot.
Again, something that the sequels haven't grasped, and the prequels didn't get it either. But there was no good imposing ships.
Yeah,
but the sequels haven't got this either, have they? You know, it's like that bit where the entire First Order fleet is chasing the one rebel cruiser in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And you've got, all the Star Destroyers line up, and they just don't look imposing. But then you've got Snoke's thing, which just looks like a sort of big flying V, and that just doesn't look imposing.
Like Last Jedi as well brought in the Dreadnought as well, which is meant to be this really imposing ship, and then all the guns are immediately taken out by Poe Dameron right from the off, and it's just rendered inert pretty much from the off.
So I don't know, if there's something that these two stories have done,
the space flights and space battles are really good.
Among the things that I'm not going to be too harsh. I was salty when we left the cinema. I'm mellowing a bit. I'm not going to go see it again, though. I'm not stupid.
God, don't do anything drastic. Jesus. Don't make my mistake of having to see this twice.
It cost me 15 bloody quid.
Yeah.
So, welcome to Brexit Britain.
I love Briggs's comment. I thought it was fun, but these guys have been ragging on it for a while now.
We've been doing it, obviously.
This is the thing. Like when we did Last Jedi, I was gonna say last year. It was last year, wasn't it? December. Like we were ragging on that for about 2+ hours, and then we kind of said at the time. I mean, I've disliked the film more and more as I watched it now, but at the time I was like, I didn't even hate this movie. I was just kind of indifferent towards it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I feel about this one. It's a very average meh movie.
If you want to, but we didn't. I was gonna say if you want to see us ragging, there was that wonderful video I was on in which everyone hates me.
Oh, which one? Sorry.
No, it was the Wonder Woman trailer.
Oh, God,
because you made the mistake of asking me, what do you think of DC films? Which was my invitation.
And you were truthful.
And then we said, what do you think of this trailer? I was like, well, it's okay. And it was just, these people just hate everything. I was like, I said the movie was looking all right. It's the same for this. I don't know if I've been ragging on it. I don't feel like I have. We've said quite a lot of nice things.
We've brought up very few and far between positive things.
I'm going to rag on it properly at the end. No, I'm not.
Well, we're going to talk about the Kessel Run now. So,
they realise that they can't run past the it's a blockade. One ship.
It's like Phantom Menace, isn't it? Like there's the blockade, one ship, fly immediately past it.
There's that total 250 million budget. But yeah, the Kessel Run is this huge asteroid field, basically encased in a big swirling maelstrom.
They even played the asteroid field music from Empire Strikes Back. This is like the scene where they dump all those old themes in there in this scene.
Good.
Yeah,
it's a really good scene.
This feels like a fun Star Wars scene. Like,
yeah,
I thought this the first time. I was a lot more not hate-filled. I was a lot more I criticized this movie a lot more the first time I watched it compared to this time.
Yeah,
but even I was watching it this time, and I was kind of like, I did find myself getting swept up into the scene a bit. And you like stopped. I think we got like 5 minutes into the scene, and you went like, you know what? I'm enjoying this scene, and it's right. If it like Woody Harrelson gets on the gun, you've got like it feels like a good space fun action scene in the Star Wars movie, and that's what you want.
You can still see enough of the. Yes, it's all shot in this big sort of blue swatch over it, but you can still see enough of the action.
Yeah,
the Kessel Run itself, the kind of field is left broadly to your imagination.
I like that though.
Yeah, which I'm agreeing. I don't mind that it's not very defined. It just seems, and that's what a space fantasy should be. It doesn't have to be. This has to be explained.
Yeah,
you know, it can be just like a nebulous, massive ship.
Cosmic nothing.
Yeah,
like
for you to fly through. You know, you've got the ship just ditching around everywhere. You've got that when the gun goes and he's like, "There's a tie above you," so he just flips the ship and takes the tie out. And I was like, "Yes,
yeah,
this is good. This is," and the action's quite clean. It's not too much shaky when you see it.
You can tell everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's not like in Force Awakens where the Millennium Falcon scene was
all over the place. That's J.J. Abrams, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not even going to go there. But this, it was really good. It was really enjoyable. They stick L3's Navi computer.
Yeah, they plug her in, so they've got the entire map all sketched out.
Yeah, I'm really interested in finding out if that is a bit of the prop from any of the other films.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole
gold. It wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Yeah, I mean the whole gold die thing as well, which I thought they only really bought in with the sequel trilogy, where they made a big deal of that, like the gold little things he has at the front of his ship. I know that was in the original.
Are they?
It was in A New Hope, I believe. You see it there. They don't make a big deal of it, and the camera never focuses on it long enough to really notice it.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it. I've seen the original Star Wars a bunch of times.
You know why they don't notice it? It's not fucking important.
Yeah.
It's just this guy's a bit of a rogue. He trusts luck. He's got dice in his thing. As opposed to, this is the only thing about my character that matters. Make sure, Leia, that you've got these dice at all times. I'm going to get Luke's ghost to give you them. Yeah. That's how important they are. And they're not even ghost.
And they're just going to disappear at the end.
They're ghost dice as well. It's so important that those dice have a Force ghost. Because that's all that Han is now.
Add those into the special edition ending of Return of the Jedi.
So Bulb was going to have them hanging off of their thing, whereas these things are... But appear in each movie.
God, yeah, it's gonna be like a Where's Waldo kind of thing, or Where's Wally thing, where it's
General Hux is gonna have them at the front of the Star Destroyer.
as long as they don't do like a Transformers Revenge of the Fallen thing, where it's like two giant testicles just swinging over the die.
No. Anyway,
cheapen Star Wars even more.
Anyway, so the Kessel Run, exciting action scene, good stuff. They all make quips. They're all the same character, but whatever. Who cares? Then
we enter a bit that kind of goes into Phantom Menace territory for me. Not in a bad way, but the way that it's framed, the way that the scene's structured, and that all the engines cut out and everything goes dark, and then they sort of spark up the engine again, and then there's like a giant eye there, and we're faced with a monster. It reminded me of the underwater bongo scene where, but then like Jar Jar goes crazy. He's like, yeah, monster. That monster did remind me of something from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I don't know if you've seen that one yet, but
no, you already spoiled all the other films.
Yeah, the very beginning of the film, as the opening credits roll, it's just the opening action scene to get you back into it. There's like a giant squid thing that looks almost exactly like that. And to compare it to another Disney film, it really reminds me of Treasure Planet. And the way they get out of it, there's this like giant, well, they don't call it a black hole, but it basically serves exactly the same purpose as one, in that there's this gravity thing where it's like pulling everything in, condensing everything down, and the ship's like slowly getting dragged in with this monster. And they figure out the way to get out of it is they need to cause an explosion that will blast them out of it, and then they can blast to hyperspace. That's basically what happens in Treasure Planet.
Yeah, it is. Twice
in that movie. It happens earlier in the film where they enter a black hole, and then there's a moment at the end where the planet's about to blow up, and they have to... Am I really that bad for spoilers, Brinsley?
Yeah.
Okay. What spoilers for what? For this
anything?
Treasure Planet? I just ruined like an ancient Disney movie.
Now we've got to do a Treasure Planet spoiler. Right. So two things. I like the big space creature. I'm a big fan of that in space fantasy. It's like when Doctor Who did a big space whale. I like space whales. Space whales are cool. Big space squids, cool.
Treasure Planet did space whales.
Yeah, that's why it's a good Disney movie that no one likes.
Yeah,
it's quite rightly liked.
It's one of the most underrated Disney movies. Yeah.
Anyway, so should we just talk
Treasure Planet review.
It's way better than Solo. So many. Anyway, yeah, I like that. It's fine. I wish they didn't show it all, because they show off the whole thing, and it changes shape after scene, and it's really indistinct, and it's this big blob with tentacles. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't think you needed to see all that.
There's a great shot where it's almost black and white, where they go into the heart of the maelstrom, and there's like a thunder crash, and you just see like a vague outline of it, and it's like very like almost like Cthulhu, almost really otherworldly.
But here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Part of their plan, involves like riding the gravity well and blasting out of it. So what's the point of the squid?
They needed a threat level. The black hole wasn't a good enough threat.
A black hole's not a good enough threat, is it?
Yeah.
You need a squid, do you?
You need a squid.
That was completely...
You need a Watchmen-style alien squid.
That squid is 50 million quid a budget, that is. You could have spent it on anything. I put them on more buses.
When they bring out that visual companion, there's going to be like an overleaf thing where you pull it out. It's going to have like the full schematic of it.
I'm surprised it didn't like get sucked in and then like a baby Dianoga appears. Like, it turns out it gets lodged in the Death Star.
I'm glad they didn't do like a space worm again, like Empire Strikes Back.
It's just a squid.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
and it doesn't like accidentally eat them.
Yeah,
it does. It eats an escape pod.
I thought it was going to like eat them, and then they were going to like light speed out of the side of it or something like that.
Frozen?
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, we have just like a rock that's closing now that they have to.
Oh yeah. But it's a good scene. It's nice to see. It's nice and dynamic. It manages to hit for me. I'm not quite as jaded as you with movies because I haven't seen that many of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do movies. Can't stand them.
What are movies?
Can't stand them. All movies, just regardless. What we're doing. Oh yeah.
That's what I said this morning when I went to Solo a second time.
Yeah. So what I would say about it is that I think it did quite a good job, even though the conclusion is totally foregone. You know what's going to happen. I still think they did a good job of keeping the tension up with it, even though it's quite like light-hearted and it's quite clearly they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they did a good job of the tension for it.
Yeah.
And with that, the last good bit of the movie concludes.
That's my favorite bit of the movie. The movie, you mentioned it as well, sags after that. You're on such a high after that action scene, and I think the squid bit went on for a little bit too long, maybe, but the scene didn't outstay its welcome as much to me as it did with the train sequence, maybe because I was actually invested in the Kessel Run a lot more. But it sags, so they get the coaxium, they take it to get refined, and then out of nowhere, well, I know that they set up this. That was a really quick scene, by the way, earlier in the film where what are they called? The Marauders, the pirates, sort of like it just immediately cuts. And it's just like, oh yeah, we put a tracking device on the ship. Okay, blah 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 blah. This will come back later in the film. Cut to the next scene, and it's really quick.
That's how you should write things. Here's a thing. It will come back later.
Yeah.
Here's a thing. It's going to come back.
They do that again.
Don't like people. These people will betray you or die.
They do that again. We're introduced to Paul Bettany's character, and he kills someone with a knife. And they set this scene up. He like puts it on this tray, and he says like, "Oh, I like this. Keep this. This might come in handy later." And like winks at the
it's Woody Harrelson, who's like, people betray you. Don't trust anybody. Really. I wonder, out of this scene with Chewbacca, Han, and then the two new characters. So when they do betray you, spoiler.
You said that when as soon as Woody Harrelson's character showed up in the film, he was like, "So is it going to be about an hour and a half's time where he's going to betray Han Solo?" I was like.
He didn't even try it on. It was, yeah.
Kira shows up again, like, so she's going to betray it.
Oh, I wonder how I could have guessed that, given she dresses entirely in black and is attached to a criminal organisation. Wow.
They keep showing that brand she's got on her arm. It's like covering up. So yeah, they find the coaxium. The Marauders show up again, and there's a little bit of a standoff. They try and play it for comedy where he says that, I've got 30 guns in the Millennium Falcon. Lando just fucks off and drives off.
Yeah.
And the leader of the Marauders takes the helmet off, and it turns out it's a little girl. And then there's a bait and switch where you thought these were villains, just pirates, and it turns out that these were survivors of, I was going to say Crimson Tide, Crimson Peak,
the Red October standing by,
Red October, Red Dawn, Crimson Peak, whatever the fuck it's called. Crimson Dawn. Crimson Dawn. There we go. Rattle off every movie title that isn't the name of this.
I'd love it. Just Sean Connery comes in. Oh no, these people.
So Crimson Peak.
Shut up. I'll do the Crimson Dawn.
Crimson Dawn. They find out that they're survivors of that crew who like laid waste to their city, not just the men, but the women and the children too.
That was it. There was a line, and I just like, that's not right. They go to him, to Han, and they're like, Crimson Dawn are a criminal syndicate. You don't. What do you think happens? Like they leave destruction in their way. No. Really?
It's like it's like they cut out the tongues of every man, woman, and child, except for that guy and you and that person and that person.
But it implies like all the people on the planet have had their tongues cut out because they can't talk; they just draw things.
Okay.
And they never respond because it was easier on their extras. It's cheaper. They already spent the money on the big space equipment.
Yeah, and it's like this is sort of a precursor to a faction of the rebellion.
Yeah.
And this is where Han sort of gets somewhat of a conscience that he wants to help them, but then he kind of goes back on that at the end of the movie.
Well, no, he gives.
There's this whole.
The whole point about it,
yeah,
it's there to set up a big double cross or triple cross. So, Han wants to give the fuel to the Marauders, the rebels.
Mm-hmm. Woody
Harrelson says no. So, the next scene, they're on board Dyson Cleaner's ship, and I shouldn't say that, I've made that joke, it's a bad joke. Paul Bettany's ship, and Han and Chewie show off the fuel.
Yeah,
and they're like, he's like, it's very good copy, I would never guess that it's real, but unfortunately, shock horror, not Paul Bettany, Woody Harrelson has already betrayed you, and he knows that it's real. And then it cuts to the rebels, and it's like, they've got the real boxes full of the shit. But then there's another cross where Han's like, no, I'm cleverer than you think, despite the entire movie being about me being completely thick as pig shit. He goes, no, I've got a plan. And it turns out, actually, that's the real stuff in front of him, and the other ones are just empty.
Yeah.
So Woody Harrelson's like, well, I'll just take it then.
Yeah.
And with Chewbacca, and I'll just bugger off.
So couldn't the entire ending of this movie have been avoided if...
Yes.
He'd have just shot...
The entire movie
could have
been avoided.
But I'm just thinking, like, couldn't he have just killed Woody Harrelson?
Yeah.
I mean, Kira would have still been there, but like he could have taken that coaxium, he could have sold it off, he could have done whatever he needed to. It could have just given it to the people. Or did he need to go back there purposely just to kill Drayden? But I mean, he's not even the one that ends up killing him in the first place.
I think they just... It's just too complex a little twist.
I think they did a few twists too many.
Yeah.
I get the whole thing, like...
There's nothing wrong with a good double cross.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with a good triple cross. But the more convoluted you make the crossing, the more you kind of asking your viewers to, like, sit there and puzzle it out.
Yeah.
And the harder it is to kind of justify it. And Han's not an intelligent character in this movie.
No.
So I don't think he earns the right to do it. Chewbacca could have planned it, but then you'd have to listen to like...
Then it would have become the holiday special again.
Yeah, then it would have been the holiday special.
Ultimately, it pans out where Beckett runs off, and then there's an altercation between Paul Bettany, Han Solo, and Kira. Yeah. Kira ends up killing...
reference that fucked me off. You've just reminded me. Back on the mining planet, Kira beats up the bloke.
Yeah,
the mining overseer, and Woody Harrelson goes, "What's that?" And she goes, "It's Teras Kasi." Do you know what that is?
No.
There was a Star Wars game on PS1 called Masters of Teras Kasi.
Right.
One-on-one fighter. Really, really shit. And it was only called that because essentially it's supposed to translate in some language, God knows which one, into Iron Fist or Steel Fist, which is Tekken. So they called it the Star Wars equivalent of Tekken.
Okay.
So Teras Kasi is a holdover from an old game, meaning that she's learned how to fight, basically, handheld. And I just heard it, and I was like, that's...
Oh, I see.
I get, like, as a reference, that's clearly one for a very specific fan. Unfortunately, it's fucking shit.
See, like, that's a really obscure reference for, like, most... I didn't clock that.
That's the thing. Like, who's this film for? Is it for people who gets the obscure references, or is it not? Is it for new fans?
Yeah.
I've read apparently in the I saw all the scans of this and I was reading through it, the encyclopedia that goes with it, the companion, and it's like, oh, the dogs you see on Corellia at the start specifically named. It is a deep cut reference. That's what my point is, though. They're a specifically named creature. I can't remember what it is from one of the old EU books, and then they match the description. Who's getting that? That's an old. That's a film. That's a reference for nerds like me, not a reference for normal people who want to go see a normal Star Wars film. Who's this film for? Those references aren't enough to say someone like me who wants to see a decent film that goes back into not shit Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they don't mean anything to people who are just watching new Star Wars. So what's the point? It could just be like, where did you learn to do that? And she goes like, Crime Lord.
Yeah.
Who cares? Does it need to be, you know... Imagine if someone like knocked someone out with a rock and they go, what's that? Oh, it's the Gungan Peace Orb from...
just caving someone's head. Boss that's free!
Do you know what? Even more obscure than that. If someone like, I don't know, imagine... If there was a lightsaber wielding character, they pulled a lightsaber out of nowhere and it was attached to a power pack. Wouldn't mean anything to anybody unless you'd read Tales of the Jedi, the comics from 1996. Doesn't mean it. So what's the fucking point?
I think it's...
I'm making a lot of that. It pisses
maybe it's some of the filmmakers that, you know, grew up with some of this stuff and want to get it in there somewhere. It's going to be a reference that no one's going to pick up on, so it's just kind of surface level.
If it's not going to be gotten, there's no point it being in the film. If you're going to put a reference in a film for the sake of putting a reference in the film, fuck off. That's not how you write.
Yeah.
It's not how you write any sort of media. And that's what's wrong with films today. They're all just fucking references.
Well, this is what we're talking, that they like cherry pick what they want, you know, all that stuff. Brinsley's point, I really want to see the original vision of this film. Could have been really funny. I agree. And like, you know, when they started off doing these spin-off films and everything like that, Kathleen Kennedy was very open to up-and-coming directors, new, different, unique directors and stuff that would have their own vision that would make each film unique in some way, and it wouldn't be so tethered to the style they're going with. But now it seems like they've got one overarching vision. Like with Marvel, I get that they have to... I think they've got a bit more relaxed with that now, and they're bringing in the likes of Taika Waititi with Thor Ragnarok, and you've got other directors. Russo brothers tend to do the more serious ones like Winter Soldier, Civil War, and Infinity War, but it seems like they have more freedom to make the movie they want.
Yeah.
Although there is still obviously an overarching vision because that's a shared universe with Marvel. But with Star Wars, I was all up for a Star Wars film not feeling like an inherent Star Wars movie.
They should have, you know, they said they were going to embrace auteur directors.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's a big space fantasy serial. It can be weird and wacky.
Yeah. Not
Holiday Special weird and wacky, but it can be weird and wacky. And they haven't done this. They brought 2 auteurs in and then sacked them off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, J.J. Abrams, I know there was a lot of problems with the script process of that, and I think they were down to the wire writing that script as they were filming. Rian Johnson was the only one who kind of got free reign to direct and write, and obviously loads of people...
I find that very difficult to believe that there's any problems with J.J. Abrams' script writing. How could you have a problem? How could there be any problems with J.J. Abrams' script writing? None whatsoever. You got a boyfriend, cute boyfriend.
Well, exactly. Like that is probably one of my most hated lines of that movie. But like Gareth Edwards, apparently the original cut for that movie. That's an original cut of the Star Wars movie that I would love to see way more than this one. In that was filmed and it was said that it was too dark, it was too violent, it was inherently a war film.
Yeah.
And there are moments of that film where, and I know that the Vader scene was added in reshoots and everything like that. I love that Vader scene. But there are moments on. Is it Jakku? Yeah, I think it's Jakku. Not Jakku. Where's the planet they go to?
The desert planet.
Yeah. Oh god, I can't believe I'm blanking the name of that.
Doesn't matter. The one that gets blown up.
And you've got that like screaming kid in the middle of like a war happening, and that like really hit me hard because like you see stuff on that like the news, and I thought this is what this movie could have been. I think like the original tagline of like Gareth Edwards' intention was this is going to put like the war in Star Wars. It's going to feel like a proper movie like that. And then obviously they do the draft. They say that kids aren't going to like this. This doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie. It feels too different. Reshuffle it, rejig it, and then we get the movie that we got.
But the answer to that is give it to your auteurs. Let them have their vision, but don't put as much money in it. Don't put $200 million into this film.
Yeah.
Put less. It might not be as flashy a film, but then it doesn't need to recoup all that.
Yeah.
So you can afford to market it to a smaller audience and just make them wildly different. You know, make a really funny one, make a really serious one. They've got two different audiences. Not every single person needs to see every single Star Wars film, he says, having just seen every single Star Wars film. You know what I mean?
And that's the same with this one. Like, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy must have known what kind of product she would get if you bring in Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Look at the films they made. Lego Movie, 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street. Each one of those films has been very quippy, has been very tongue-in-cheek with its references, have been very self-aware in some instances. In that case, like 22 Jump Street, I actually haven't seen 22 Jump Street, but I know that it's a film that is aware that it's a sequel, and it plays on a lot of the tropes that usually appear in sequels, but it kind of makes it its own, and it makes it really kind of witty and unique with how they do it. It would have been a very different Han Solo film, but I think that maybe that would have been a style that would have worked for it. We don't know. We'll never see that movie. We'll never get a documentary. And this is what I don't like about the behind the scenes. I'm kind of spoilt for behind the scenes now after watching like The Lord of the Rings, for example, or The Hobbit, where you have literally like 9 to 10 hours. And, you know, Peter Jackson and co are very candid with the problems they had, with the limitations they had, and like the studio involvement and things like that. But with Star Wars, with the behind the scenes now, I hate it. It's this very political, glossed over. Everything was fine. We were all like a giant family on set. We had no problems. When in actual fact, you know, there was.
We're contractually obligated to tell you there was no problem.
Exactly. And like, if you look at Phantom Menace, like the behind the scenes on that, that's such a great behind the scenes documentary, because you see people pointing fingers. You see the look of uncertainty and fear on people's faces.
Well, we all sat at the cinema.
the first watching, and Rick McCallum's there just like,
what have we done?
And people are just looking like, what the hell did we just witness? You get that, and you see that, and you'll never get that now in a new Star Wars movie.
No.
And that's a shame.
Instead, we get a movie like this one that ends with Han shooting Woody Harrelson first, because that's funny. It's something he did in the previous one. It ends with him saying punch it. It ends with just imagery repeated over and over, and it ends with what I think. Now, I feel like I haven't ragged on this film. I feel like I've not enjoyed it. I hated it in the cinema, and as I've mellowed over it and thought over it, I thought, no.
But you've mentioned the positives. You mentioned...
Yeah, I do think there are definitely positives to it. I think it's got deep flaws to it. But I absolutely, utterly inexcusable twist in the ending that I think stands out as what I would consider the worst moment in the entire franchise of films. Shall we talk about it?
Yes. So this is after Han leaves to go after Beckett, and Kira's left there, and she pulls the blinds, and we get this change in mood. There's mood light, and she's evil now, and she essentially takes up the mantle of Crimson Dawn, and she turns on a hologram. And the hologram kicks in, and it's from a very low angle shot, and we see someone sitting in what looks like a throne or some kind of chair. Now, when this first came on, I thought it was the Emperor, and I was really excited.
Designed to be framed like that.
Yeah, but the voice was different, and I recognized the voice, but I couldn't place it, and we see like a bit of a robotic leg. Didn't think anything of it.
I don't even think you see it as like a robotic leg.
No, because the hologram's in such a way where it's...
fat leg.
Yeah. And it's Darth Maul. And obviously, like, this is the one thing we really wanted to talk about in spoiler-free. Obviously, we can't. Return of Darth Maul.
It's only taken us 2 hours to get there.
Only, yeah, right. Almost as long as the movie itself.
All over again.
I believe they brought Ray Park back for it, although he looks very CGI, and I don't know how much of that is because it's framed from a hologram. Essentially, Darth Maul's back now, and it's always been a weird grey area in the canon that for people that are really hardcore into the canon, have read the expanded universe, who now have watched Clone Wars or Rebels, you know that Darth Maul is still alive in the continuity anyway. Following the events, he went crazy. He went to like this trash planet. You had his brother Savage Opress, which is one of the dumbest names in Star Wars, but it is what it is. And ultimately, we know his ending, that he dies in Rebels. He dies at the hands of Obi-Wan right before the original trilogy kicks in.
Yeah. In the old expanded universe, he only survives in a what if. Obviously, he gets killed in episode 1 because he gets cut in half and falls on a massive reactor.
Yeah.
Or possibly a trash thing. I don't know. It's not explained because explanations are beyond
And let's be fair, he was dead at that point.
Very, very dead.
He was only brought back, I think, kind of like a Boba Fett thing because he was a popular character.
There's a what-if moment where he gets robot legs and gets killed by Obi-Wan. And then, but the actual... Someone looked at all of the myriad options from EU to bring back Jason and Jaina Solo, stuff from the pre-Republics thing, like the March of the Mandalorians, the Great Hyperspace War, these incredible moments. And they went, nah, Darth Maul, he got to come back, he has.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he is, and I'm going to say it, wank.
It's when you watch Phantom Menace, he is a terrible character in that he doesn't have a character. I think the only lines he says in the film are like, Tatooine is vastly populated. If the trace was correct, I'll find them quickly, Master.
And he's like, we'll have revenge.
At last we'll reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we'll have revenge. That is his entire amount of dialogue in that movie.
He exists only for 2 quite good fight scenes.
Look cool, to look cool and to have a cool fight scene.
I say quite good fight scenes. The first one's quite good. The second one is really rather good.
Yeah.
But no, I really, really hate the notion that Maul is being brought back. Partly because it undoes the permanence of death in Star Wars. I know there's already the Force Ghost thing, but that in itself is not really coming back. It's just kind of a nod.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, bye. That was my Alec Guinness impression. But yeah, I hate the idea that Maul survives. I hate the idea that he comes back with robot legs. I hate the fact that he has been brought back in Rebels. I hate the fact that that's not treated as something inherently and utterly just facile. And I hate the fact that he's not just... I can safely ignore Rebels. I don't watch it. I'm not interested in it. I've watched bits of it and I don't really care for it, but not aimed at me. It's a kid show. That's why you like it.
I don't like it. Don't look at me.
Oh, hang on. No, you like Clone Wars. Even worse.
I like the original Cartoon Network Clone Wars. It's a lot better than the new one.
That's true. But I can't... there's no saving the fact that he's now in Solo, the Star Wars movie.
And me and George have talked about this a lot with our predictions videos and stuff as Star Wars has gone on, in that Darth Maul in the movies, like, that's your core audience, is the Star Wars movies that come out. Like, your hardcore fans are gonna want to, you know, mine the well of everything they can with Star Wars. They're going to be watching Rebels. They're going to be watching Clone Wars. They know these things, but for newcomers or people that have just watched the Star Wars films, to them, Darth Maul died. He got cut in half, fell down that shaft, and that was the end of the character.
This is an extension of my point now, though, because who's this movie aimed at? Is it aimed... Because now you've got 3 separate audiences. You've got hardcore fans, old EU, me, miserable bastards. You've got casual fans who watch the movies, and you've got hardcore fans of the new canon.
Yeah.
Dare I say it? The shit canon. I'll just call it the shit canon, because that's what it is. Where... it's Samurai Jack one. But yeah, and those people are the only people, that small subset of people who have watched all of Clone Wars and all of Rebels and read the books, like there's Thrawn and there's a couple others, the ones that lead up to episode 7, 8, and 9. And they've watched the 7, 8, and 9 movies. No, they haven't watched 9. No one's watched 9. So, this is for the future, Chris. This is... They're the only people on the planet who are going to appreciate how, why, or even the fact that Maul is back with his big robo legs, his big fat robo legs, like he's got off Mr. Psycho out of Robot Wars.
The first time I watched this movie a couple of weeks ago, got to the ending, and I'm not going to lie, I was a complete mark for this scene. I was that sea lion clapping fanboy during seeing Darth Maul again, but I was conscious of the fact that people were whispering to each other. You had a few gasps that Maul was there, but I could see the look of confusion on some people's faces, and that there was like, "Oh, Maul's back. Wait, didn't he die?" Like, I could see them doing that. Now, me, I was taken back to 99-year-old me, 6-year-old me, who Darth Maul was my favorite character. Phantom Menace was the first Star Wars movie I ever watched, and that got me into Star Wars. So, although the movie, now that I'm older, has a lot of problems and isn't a good movie, I still have that nostalgia for it. And I guess just seeing Maul on the big screen, because he was a cool-looking character, and that was entirely the only reason that I liked Maul as a kid, I did kind of get giddy seeing him again. But the more you think about it, I liked having that there was that separation, although it was still part of the canon. If you are looking at it as a whole, you still had movie canon and you still had everything else that came with it. Yep. And I was fine with Maul being in that canon of everything else because it was a fun, like, I always saw it as a fun what if, like Maul coming back. It's going to be weird though, but now this has raised a lot of questions. Will they do a Solo 2 and bring Maul into that? Ultimately, we know Maul's end, and that's in Rebels, and he dies at the hands of Obi-Wan, as I said right before the original movies. So are they going to address it? Is that going to be they need to address it? Is that going to be a Kenobi movie, or are they going to say, "Well, fuck it, you missed him coming in Rebels. You can go and watch Rebels and watch him go out"? Well, here's the thing: if they do Kenobi, great, you can put Maul in there, and I actually think there's a lot of valid reasons to put Maul in that movie because you can develop events from Phantom Menace more. You can flesh it out more. You can bring the whole fact that his master Qui-Gon was killed at the hands of Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan will have to decide whether he wants to get revenge or stay true to being a Jedi. There's a lot you could do with it. But ultimately, because we know Maul's end, there's going to be no tension during that moment. It's going to be that classic prequel trap where you know that Obi-Wan can't die because he needs to be present for the original trilogy. You know that Maul can't die because that's not the moment that he dies. Unless they film the moment he dies and do a film version of it. I don't think so. I don't see them doing that because it's Alec Guinness. Yeah. It's Alec Guinness that eventually kills Darth Maul. It's older Obi-Wan. Age him up. So it's I'm trying to question the point now. You say that we've already had Peter Cushing come back. That's true. So CG Alec Guinness. No. It might happen. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with him, but I just don't see it being anything important now. Too many problems with it. Yeah. Not to mention, it's a really, really dumb decision. So he tells Kira to, now that she's head of Crimson Dawn, yeah, I'm going to keep doing it. So meet me on Dathomir, which is his home world. No, he's from Meridonia. Oh, okay. Dathomir was where a group of Force users who were witches, basically. Oh, of course, that's where I know it from Clone Wars. They were raised, and they raised Maul and trained him in the Force. Townsend. Was it from Clone Wars? It was like a voodoo kind of planet. Yeah, in the old Tartakovsky, I think. Yeah, that's where I know it from them, from Clone Wars. Yeah. Are they going to? But because they said they've announced. Well, they kind of re-announced. We already know it's coming out. They're doing Obi-Wan Kenobi spin-off film. They're doing Boba Fett spin-off film. Could they do a Maul spin-off film? But again, they've done so much in Clone Wars, they can't retread over that. They've done stuff with him in Rebels. They can't do anything with that. Where are you going to set this? Are you going to do a prequel and show how he got involved with the dark side and everything like that? And there's time before that point. Is that necessary? Such a shit film. Angry man is born, becomes evil. Oh no, there's nothing in that film. Yeah. All it is just you might as well just no. I disagree with Maul coming back because he's not a good character. I disagree with Maul coming back because it's a bad decision. But it's just making too many Crimson Tide Maul. There's just too many problems with it. Yeah. Either they address it and override some of one of the other films, whatever bits and bobs they've done, like Rebels or whatever, or they don't. They just say, nah, fuck you, mate. You've got to go watch it. In which case, you've introduced him for literally no reason. Well, Brinsley's just put, I don't even know if we'll see more return now. And yeah, but how could you do that? How could you bring him in and then go, You're going to do, they could do a book, I guess, and That's a good point. We will get a Kenobi film. This will be just a black mark. It won't matter. Here's the thing, right? So, the first time I watched this, and I said this on my spoiler-free review, I think that I ranked this as the worst Star Wars movie. In terms of it being completely unnecessary, the fact that there probably would be no rewatchability from me in watching this multiple times. Well, proved you wrong there. But having watched it again, I did enjoy it slightly more. Maybe not as a Star Wars movie, but maybe as sort of a random, generic sci-fi action film. Yeah, I think it's fine. But then I was thinking of where I'd rank it. Obviously, Return of the Jedi, original trilogy, Rogue One, I'd watch any day of the week over this. Revenge of the Sith, I'd watch any day of the week over this. And then I was thinking, right now, where am I going to rank this? Is this better than Force Awakens and Last Jedi? And watching it again now, I do think it's better. I have less problems with Solo than I do those two films. Maybe because I see that Force Awakens and Last Jedi kind of pisses over a legacy, whereas this, although it's still related to that original trilogy, I just find it kind of harmless and meh and average. You see, it's not harmless. Harmless in that it's a movie, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. But to my precious canon, Chris, I just feel tired with Star Wars now, and I think that boring franchise. I think a lot of the steam was taken out of me with Last Jedi. And because this is only 5 months later, I didn't even really want to see Solo, to be honest. I did get a little bit, some hype was kindled in me on the day that I was about to see it, and that I'm about to sit down and watch 2 more hours of Star Wars, and it might be fun. But I didn't really like it the first time, and now I kind of just want Star Wars to go away for a while. Yeah. I'm just bored. It seems like they had so much opportunity, and I know that we're kind of talking about Star Wars as a whole now. In 2015, they had so much opportunity to take the franchise in a new direction, to bring in old fans, but to show us something new, to have a Star Wars film for a new generation. But it feels like they're still tethered to that original trilogy. They're too scared to take chances, which is shown by the directors obviously keep dropping out or fired or everything like that. Everything's got to be streamlined to one vision. And I mean, we can see it from the audience reaction now. For a Star Wars film well, we know that it's made 300 million now. It's not going to make much more than that.
No.
To see a Star Wars film perform like that, I mean, that speaks volumes. After 3 years.
It's shocking. I mean, even the prequels, they weren't well received when they came out. They still did well.
Yeah. Because they were paced out. What was it? It was 1999, 2002, and 2005, I think it was.
2005.
So you had 3 years between each one. It felt like an event. It felt like there was a setup for them. Now you're getting one Star Wars film every year. Now, granted, after this movie's come out, we've got a year and a half to wait for episode 9. I think 9 will make a lot more.
No, it will, because people go see the numbered episode and the end of the trilogy.
And it's a December release as well.
But so it's unsustainable to release. They're trying to do the Marvel thing, obviously, but yeah, it's unsustainable. Ultimately, I think with Solo, I would rate it right at the bottom, just above The Force Awakens, which is my personally absolutely least favorite.
Mine too.
And I've said nice things about it in some respects. There are some good things about it. Excuse me. There's some good things about it.
There are elements, though, aren't there?
I would maybe put Attack of the Clones on reflection below it as well.
Yeah.
But that's a special kind of crap as well.
Yeah.
And like you say, I don't think it's inoffensive. I just think it's I do think it's offensive in some respects, but mostly it's boring.
Yeah.
It's entirely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not particularly well acted.
I'll agree with that.
Particularly well written. It's not well shot, barring a few exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
It's got disgusting colour correction. They might as well have filmed it in grayscale and done it with jazz piano all the way through, or ragtime piano. It's got references that are worthless, as if any reference is worth anything. It doesn't know which fan it's for. Whether it's for me, you, or the person who likes the new films. It doesn't. It answers questions that were not there to be answered. Solo, Chewie, fuck off. It failed to entertain me.
Yeah, no, same here.
And it has just a fuck it. We went from Last Jedi, which has, I think, one of my favourite moments in the franchise when Yoda reappears, to this. We've got more coming back, and I've never been more miserable to see an old character come back. Because at least when Yoda came out, there was a point.
Yeah.
More. Oh no.
I
don't want to say I really hate this film. I hate what it represents.
Yeah.
I hate what it stands for.
I hate what Star Wars represents now. But then again, we need to think that, and I have to look at it from a different perspective, in that people had the original trilogy, prequels come out, new kids immediately get on board with it, myself included.
We're the prequel generation for all of our sins.
When you think back, the level of merchandising that the prequels had, there was a huge,
massive.
Yeah, there was a huge push with that. Just everything Star Wars related, and the prequels didn't have any of the same, substance as the original trilogy, or the same visual style or anything like that.
A lot of what made the originals good, and obviously we're talking about a context that we can only sort of guess on and read about rather than experience. But a lot of what made the first one good or interesting about it was that nobody expected anything of it.
Yeah,
George Lucas was about as auteur director as you could get. He was given money. He was allowed to play with this stuff. He made these huge sets. you know, you see all the stories about the main leads just sort of dicking about between takes. You know, you got a company together to build like a trench run for him to scroll down with his little models and stuff. He was given space and permission to just play. And before Star Wars, there's not really a lot of sci-fi like it unless we're talking 40s. You know, because that's what it draws from. It's the old serials. It's inescapable part of what makes Star Wars so good is because it's totally, yes, it's got a huge fascistic empire and it's got the plucky rebels and it's got the standard hero journey stuff, but it takes all that regular stuff, puts it in a really light-hearted environment. Yes, okay, there's a thing that blows up planets and literal genocide about an hour into the film, but it's still not played for total misery.
Yeah.
It's bright, it's colourful, it's beautifully designed, it's got brilliant drama. You know, it doesn't have a lot of flash and pizzazz to it. It doesn't need it. It was allowed to be that. And then with the second and the third, fifth and sixth, I should say. There's only three. With the fifth and the sixth, you know, yes, there was more budget and there was more expectation, but they were already caught up in pioneering spirit.
Yeah.
To create something new, and they had new ideas each time. How many times since then have we seen a Death Star and a trench run and the same
Star Destroyer and an X-wing and a TIE fighter and a Stormtrooper and the
same AT-STs and the same desert planet, ice planet, jungle planet, lava planet bollocks?
Yeah.
How many times have we seen Darth Vader? How many times have we heard the fucking Imperial March in some form or another? How many times have we seen the same pissing title crawl? To the point where we noted at the top of this review 2.5 years ago when we started it, that there's no title crawl, it's just title cards.
Yeah,
that's not innovative. That's shit. That's lazy.
I just think, and like a lot of people are going to hate me for this, I just think that Star Wars is a creatively bankrupt franchise.
It is
like,
now.
The original trilogy was like that self-contained story. Yes, it did hint to like a bigger world and everything like that, and you can do stuff with that. Prequels came along, it was still very much tied to that original trilogy, but now everything has to be tied. When Disney acquired the rights to Star Wars and they said we're going to start doing spin-off stories and tell stories no one's ever seen before, why do they still always have to be tied to the original trilogy? I liked Rogue One, but obviously very much tied to A New Hope and the lead up to that.
Yeah.
Solo, it's tied to the original character. Then what have we got? We've got Kenobi coming out, we've got Boba Fett coming out.
Where's the film just entitled some completely new name?
New guy on new planet,
nothing
with new people, completely unrelated to anything.
Have the Empire involved in that they're an omnipotent, an omnipresent force.
Yeah, it makes sense that they would be the shadow of the Empire. Would be.
They don't need to be involved in the rebellion. They don't need to have a scepter rebellion. They don't need to be involved with the Death Star. They don't need to be involved with anything.
Yeah.
Get a guy. I said this to you when this is a heist film. Get Guy Ritchie. Make him direct a heist film. Put it in Star Wars.
I don't know, man. He directed King Arthur, movie that came out last year. That was awful.
Just saying, get someone like Jackson who's got a head for epic fantasy and the Journey film. Not necessarily Peter Jackson. I don't need 3 7-hour Star Wars films. I already feel like I've got that now. Get someone who's good for head for the fantasy and the journey. Yeah. Get people. Go bloody can and find like the little, the sods who are doing all the little really boat pushing films and go right. No connection to Star Wars, no connection to the original trilogy. Doesn't have to tie into anything. Just make a story that you can make and put it in Star Wars. That's why I like Rogue One. Yes, it's tied, and not even incidentally, it's about bloody Death Star. But none of it really connects in. Nobody's going like, have you seen the old Chinese wizard guy? He's actually Ben Kenobi's best mate.
There are some bits like when Bail Organa shows up and like the music kicks in, there's like this big reveal shot, the bit where he says like my friend the Jedi and Leia and stuff.
I'll grant you that. But like a lot of that is war film. The main villain, if you like, is Tarkin in a sort of very nebulous sense.
Yeah. There's these plans we need to get them to us to beat the bad guys. Yeah. And you can kind of watch that on its own. Obviously, you get like C-3PO, R2-D2, you get Dr. Evazan in there and the stuff like that.
I would love to take someone who's never watched Star Wars before and put Rogue One in front of them and see what they think. And without even going like, you need to think about who the references are. Just watch it and you'll go, yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know what a Jedi is. I don't know what this is, but I can get this Needle Empire. I can get this bunch of plucky people who by the end get horribly sacrificed. It's just a good war film.
It's always the prequel thing, though. Like, I always think that anyone coming into Star Wars has to watch the original trilogy first because that's your basis. That's like a newcomer taking your first steps into it, like Luke Skywalker. Because if you do a prequel, say you do, like, I don't know, the prequels are a good example, actually. Like with Phantom Menace, like you see a lightsaber or you see a Jedi or they mention the dark side. none of that's explained. It's like, how much do I have to retread and reiterate for a newcomer who will be watching this first?
I think before you could go into episode 1. How much explanation do you really need? You get it told to you straight up. There's a Galactic Republic, obviously good because republics are good. There's a Trade Federation, clearly bad because they're blockading a peaceful planet. You don't need to know like the backstory of the Nemoidians. When a lightsaber comes on, you don't need someone going like, "This is your father's lightsaber."
Well, it's like explaining what the Force is.
You don't need
and stuff like that.
Well, if we're going to talk about explain what the Force is, let's not talk about episode 1 as an example.
Yeah,
but you don't need to. They're space wizards. They're clearly space wizards. Everyone else looks like they're in a sci-fi, and they look like they're at a D&D convention. They're very obviously space wizards. They've got big robes on, and they do this, and things move. We don't need to explain that. You go, I do this, and I do that, and all the battle droids fling apart. They're wizards. They've got magic powers that can make people move with their mind. That doesn't need explaining. It certainly doesn't need a small scene where they go, by the way, oh, Christ almighty, our science particles tell us you're really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Solo.
Yeah, so to tie it back, if I'm going to give a recommendation on this movie, this is really tough. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll have seen it already. If you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, or apparently not, judging by how much it's made. I think that casual moviegoers are going to find this just a very boring film. I don't think they're going to get tied into it. I think that people who devoutly love the original trilogy are going to be turned off by it because the whole Han Solo thing, like they might see it as besmirching the character that they love, or the fact that people will have just seen it and it will have no rewatchability. I had completely forgotten this movie, more or less, and I only saw it a week ago, had no lasting impact on me. I've seen it the second time now. I can't say that I'll never watch this movie again, because it might entirely happen. Although I still don't have the Blu-ray for Force Awakens or Last Jedi, and I kind of want to keep it that. Like, I've seen those movies, I feel like I won't get anything out of watching those movies again.
You will,
and I kind of
get a lasting sense of disappointment.
And I kind of feel the same with this one, and it's just that this movie has made me tired of Star Wars, and apparently it has with everyone else as well. And the fact that they're not going to stop the ball rolling anytime soon. We've got Kenobi coming out. We've got Episode 9. We've got Boba Fett spin-off. We've got Jon Favreau doing a live-action Star Wars TV series. We've got Rian Johnson, who's been given a new trilogy of films after the main trilogy's finished. We've got the Game of Thrones, was it David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who have been given something Star Wars related, whether that's movies or a TV show. There's just so much. And I think with Marvel, you can keep cranking them out because it's different characters and everything like that. And it does feel very comic booky. I think Star Wars, there was something special about that anticipation and waiting for those episodic films. And I think that's been taken away now because it has just become... It's like the Wizard of Oz. Like, you can see the man behind the curtain now. You can see the wizard behind the curtain. You can see Disney pulling all the strings. You know, the corporate merchandise inside of it and everything like that, whoring these products out. And because of that, now I've been turned off Star Wars. And it's making me very critical of Star Wars as a whole now. Like, it's making me feel like I don't really want to watch the original trilogy again because I'm sort of burnt out on it at this point.
What I've found is that I don't know. I've been reading a lot of old EU stuff that I missed. I recently read Shatterpoint for the first time.
Yeah.
Which is Matt Stover, the guy who wrote the excellent novelization of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like a Mace Windu-focused Heart of Darkness knockoff. It's brilliant. I recently read Shadows of the Empire, which is all right. I recently reread the Tales of the Jedi comics, which I love. The art style in that is properly messy, and it's brilliant. I recently replayed Battlefront 2. There's only one of them, so you know which one I'm talking about. It was made over a decade ago.
Yeah.
There's no other Battlefront game. What a shame. You know, I've recently... reread like the Zahn trilogy, the Thrawn one. I've started reading New Jedi Order again with the Yuzhan Vong. I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed reminding myself that there's a Star Wars outside of the movies, and it used to be really quite good. Not entirely.
There was a lot of bad stuff as well.
You have to cherry pick with the EU because there's so much, because they just handed the license out. But the stuff that is good is brilliant, or it has the potential to look at that. And actually, I've enjoyed that. That's how I've been experiencing Star Wars. I have not wanted to sit down and watch a Star Wars movie since Last Jedi. I didn't really know if I wanted to do this one. I put off watching it and put off and put off. And I thought, no, I will watch it because it's Star Wars. And I'm glad I did it in that. It meant I got to have a laugh about it, but I'm not glad I watched it in terms of having watched a movie. Yeah. You know, I enjoyed the experience of annoying other cinema goers rather than I enjoyed the experience of Han Solo's amazing run through Kessel. I just, So I'm ready for Star Wars to take a 1.5 year break before the 9th one. I will obviously watch the 9th one because I don't have a good reason why, but I will. Because I want to see how they conclude this mess, this absolute wreck of a trilogy. I say I like Last Jedi, but it's J.J. Abrams in charge of the last one, so he'll spend all of his time undoing everything Rian Johnson.
We'll have a second Starkiller base.
And I
think
miraculous if they do anything interesting with it. But that's what I mean. Like, so I'm fine if there's a 1.5 year break. Obviously, I wouldn't be sorry though if after 9 they went, nah, just stop.
I think they even said, I think Kathleen Kennedy's looked at the business model, because I mean that's what Star Wars is ultimately at this point, a business model, saw the reaction to this one and is considering after episode 9 to drag out the release dates of all the other ones.
What we would call a sensible fucking decision, rather than 6 months after.
They got greedy. It's pure greed, and that's all it is. I also think that this was a really bad time to release the movie in May. I know that Star Wars was always May release dates up until Disney started bringing them in December, but you look at the level of competition that this movie had as well.
This came up against Infinity War.
Like you bring Infinity War out. I know that's made by Disney as well, so they're still reaping all the profits and everything like that. But people went to see Infinity War, and guess what? They went to see it a second time and a third time. And guess what? They continued to see it after Solo was released. You had that. You had Deadpool 2 that came out. Then you had this. And then a week after, you hit Jurassic World. And obviously, people are going to all move to that. If they had have moved it to December, I agree with Brinsley. I think it would have made a lot more. I think they could have built up to it a lot longer.
They could have spent their time reshooting it and refiguring it and doing something not shit.
I mean, the first trailer for this thing didn't come out till like a month or two before it was to be released. It was really down to the wire. I get that, and I still do have a lot of respect for Ron Howard for even getting this movie out there. I can't even imagine how rushed he would have been to reshoot this whole thing. People in post-production getting the effects ready, cobbling it together. It didn't feel disjointed. It just didn't feel that great, and I think that was a lack of like Disney having a vision for it, or them having an original vision, scrapping it and going with something new. Brinsley's put watching the Hobbit trilogy almost killed my love for Lord of the Rings.
It's that feeling, isn't it?
It kind of is, and Brinsley like, I would love to do a review of Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy at some point. It's got to be the right time. I don't know whether I'd do a sit-down discussion review like this, or if I'd want to do it scripted and really go in depth into it, because Lord of the Rings is my favorite films of all time, and I've got a lot to say on the Hobbit. I guess I'm going to plug something now as well, considering you brought up the Hobbit, because why not? I've actually been working on a fan edit of the Hobbit trilogy for the past like 2 and a bit years, I think now, 3 and a bit years. The project has like completely grown and changed over the time.
Even longer than we've been doing this review, which is amazing.
Yeah, this is probably going to be one of our longest reviews on the channel, actually.
Sorry.
But if you are interested in seeing anything related to that, I've got a Vimeo page where I do post a lot of my alterations and changes as I've been going along on this project. Just throwing that out there. He's also put, bring us all the side stories, baby. You want Yoda, Boba Fett? Yeah,
no,
it's going to happen. Most people went to see Infinity War and Deadpool 2. I agree.
You should stick a link to your Vimeo in you.
Yeah. Well, it's completely unrelated to obviously anything Star Wars, but if anyone is interested, I will post a link to that Vimeo page in the description for this video once it's all processed and it's all done and everything like that. I've said everything I can on Solo and Star Wars and more, I think.
I apologize for taking 2 and a bit hours of anybody who's watched this live.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to everyone that's joined us in the chat today. Brinsley, obviously a regular. Thank you for watching, man. We've had Auburn. I'm going to scroll up because there was the other person as well, and I don't want to leave anyone out because why not? Let's make this video longer. Oh, God, I'm not going to find it now, am I?
Wait, Percy.
There we go. Percy, MVR. Thank you to everyone that's joined today. I'm officially talked out. I want a long vacation and break away from Star Wars now. That'll do it for our review on this, though. It was a much belated spoilers review, but I'm glad we've got it out there now. Be sure to comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of Solo: A Star Wars Story. Did you like it? Are we way off base? If you managed to get to the end of this video, you're an absolute trooper. And if you're not sick of me already at this point, I will be on another live stream in just under 4 hours' time, where I'll be with George and Tate. I know, right? We'll be with George and Tate, and we'll be giving our review, spoiler-free and spoilers, on Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It's going to be a very interesting one. None of us have really talked all that much about it, and I know all of us have got a lot of stuff to say. Thank you for jumping on with me, man. This has been really good fun. We got through Solo together. And
bring on the dislikes.
Bring on episode 9 because it's a tradition now, and bring on the dislikes because they're going to happen.
Yeah, we'll do episode 9.
But yeah, thank you to everyone. Until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.